Hey guys, I'm Fight the Flat Earth. Welcome back to the channel that likes to find stupidity and point it out to everyone. But sometimes someone is so stupid that you don't actually need to point it out. And that's why today, episode 6 of Flerfs Are Idiots is all about Sleeping Warrior. Yes, Anthony Riley, or Lily, is so incredibly stupid that it actually took me twice as long to write this episode as I intended. You know, I have to actually go through his videos for this. People had voted for him to be in episode 5, but you know, it's taken me so long and I've worked so hard that...
Hey, Fight the Flat Earth.
So I guess Team Skeptic's helping with this one.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Yes, Sleeping Warrior, one of Nathan Oakley's minions, an all-round incredibly dumb fuck. His level of dumbfuckery has seen him nominated for Dumbfuck of the Year no less than 3 times. With all the stupid shit he keeps saying, I think he might actually be trying to win. The year before last, he came second, so when he was nominated again for Dumbfuck of the Year 2018, a lot of people had high hopes for him.
Let's do this. And yes, for real. All right. So, the winner of the 5th annual Dumbfuck of the Year award is Trigger Tits!
Yeah. Oh God. Yes, I just
Anthony lost again. That's you know what I think is worse that he just keeps losing.
Yeah, he
That
keeps
just means he's
trying
too hard.
Anthony, you're a loser.
But is he losing or is he losing less?
Oh man, so close, beaten to the number 1 spot by Trigger Tits. And don't worry, Southern Israelite, you'll be getting your own video soon. It must hurt being so stupid that you can't even win a loser competition. But who knows? We're hardly into the year, and you've already said some impressively stupid stuff, so maybe this will be your year. You know what, Lily? I think you can do it. I really do, but I know that you don't care about me because I've only been on the scene for a couple of months. Well, that's why I asked a couple of people who have been watching you and have been around for a lot longer for some words of encouragement for you. So here's a couple of your biggest supporters.
Lily, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. So don't forget, we know you're a massively dishonest piece of shit, which is why you constantly live up to the name Lily. But it's gotta hurt to always be the runner-up. I mean, 2 second-place finishes back-to-back in Dumbfuck of the Year? Come on. I know you got more in you. I know you can win it this year. Come on, keep the stupid flowing. I mean, don't hold back. If you think something is absolutely crazy and extreme, do it. Say it. Come on, just let it all out. Don't hold back at all this year. I know you can win it this time.
Hello Anthony, it's me, Geo. I must say, I'm a little bit disappointed in you. Even though your ability to spew random nonsense on the internet is pretty much unsurpassed, even in your community, you still have not managed to win the Dumbfuck of the Year award. I'm wondering why. But we both know that with a little bit of your work put into it, you can do it. I've seen you not understanding simple geometry. I've seen you claim that the moon landing was a hoax. Heck, I've seen you claim that space itself was a hoax. And a bunch of other random nonsense that I can't recall right now, because there's just too much of it. What's the next claim you're gonna make? Maybe the sum of the angles inside a triangle being over or lower than 180 degrees? Maybe Apple or Microsoft being responsible for 9/11? I don't know. Let's find out, shall we? You have about 11 months left to tell us more bullshit than ever before. Do your best, or your worst, depending on how you look at it, and I'm pretty certain that you will win this year's contest for DFOTY 2019. I'm Geo Streber, thank you, and peace out.
Now to help you out, Lily, just for you because I believe in you, I'm going to spend the rest of this video pointing out to everyone exactly how fucking stupid you are, so that I can give you a head start in Dumbfuck of the Year 2019. But you can't rely on people like me giving you encouragement. You're going to have to work at it, Riley. Really, really work at it, because there's some newcomers on the scene like Flat Earth Jesus and Mind of God, and they're also really fucking stupid. Let's start by looking at the intro on Sleeping Warrior's channel, which he has titled The Best Flat Earth Intro Ever.
Sleeping Warrior, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a ball that does not exist.
Oh god, yeah, so you know when something's so cringe it's like hard to watch? that's that. I wonder if I can make it easier for people to watch. Oh, I know.
Sleeping Warrior, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a ball that does not exist.
That's a trick I learnt watching pretty much every American sitcom ever. If something's cringe or not funny, just put a laugh track on and it's funny. Now that is just poking fun, but it does point out something about Lily, and that is that he has a really, really big ego. One of the hardest things about watching his videos is when he tries to put on a smart sounding voice and a picture of himself on the screen. Do you want to see that picture? Well, that does go to reinforce one thing they say about Photoshop, is that it can make anything look a bit better. Now, this starts a theme with Lily, which leads me to one of two conclusions. One, he really is this fucking stupid and full of ego. Or two, that he knows exactly what he's saying and he's a lying piece of shit, but also full of ego. We're going to take a look at a video he posted, which he calls
Ball Earth Debunked. I was away for a short break away, and this is where I took this footage from. It's from the side of the hotel at Seacoast Caravan Park, and there's a post of fence in the corner. I'm looking for Mackle Lighthouse, and in the top left we can see that I've been here before, but at 100 feet, and took that photo top left. I can clearly see that Mackle Lighthouse is in the picture. I was challenged to go back and get it lower, and visibility was not always great, so I went back at a different time of the day, or when it was good and I could see it. So I'm clearly seeing the lighthouse, and as I zoom the camera out a little bit, you should see that I can get it to basically match the landscape. This is a little bit of wow, look at how clear the footage was. And now as I zoom the camera out, I can pause it there. If I zoom in a little bit into the image, you can see that it matches the above image in the top left hand corner. This was taken from 100 feet though, and there is the lighthouse.
So Sleeping Warrior claims that he can see the lighthouse at the lower elevation as well as the higher elevation, which of course should be impossible on a spinning space pair with a circumference of 25,000 miles. But I would like you to take a look at the picture again. Now, Lily says that this is the lighthouse, but either he's lying or he's completely worthy of a win in Dumbfuck of the Year. Look at this line connecting these two areas. The point that Lily is saying is the lighthouse is actually here on his original picture, and that means the lighthouse in his second picture is somewhere down here. Now, either the Earth is a ball or that lighthouse is several meters underwater. I did start to think he was lying until I found out about how inept he is at basic maths. I know that some of you will have seen the next clip already. If you haven't, then please go and check out the entire clip, which is on Agent Ron Burgundy's channel by clicking the link above.
Anthony, if a triangle has the sides 1 and 1, do you know what the angles of the triangle are?
Which kind of triangle are you on about? Are you on about like a right angle triangle?
The triangle has sides 1, 1, and 1. Do you know what the angles are?
The angles would be, well, it would be an equilateral triangle, wouldn't it?
Right, so what are the angles? Now I'm going to ask this again. If you have a triangle with sides of 1, 1, and 1, what are the angles?
I'm gonna pull up a triangle calculator.
Let's do this again. Anthony, a triangle has sides 1, 1, and 1. What are the angles? Is somebody recording this? Because this is just priceless.
You know, whenever I'm feeling sad or I need a pick-me-up, I just watch a video of Sleeping Warrior trying to figure out triangles. So what do you guys think? Is he a liar? Or is he just really stupid? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Next up, I would like to talk about gravity, because for the flat earth morons, gravity is a massive sticking point because it completely destroys their space pancake. Now, the problem is that they say we can't prove gravity for a few reasons. One of which is that they don't understand gravity at all, and they say things like, oh, well, how come that butterfly can defy gravity? That just proves that they don't understand the model they're disagreeing with, because the butterfly creates a force under its wings which is greater than that of gravity, because gravity is proportional to mass and the butterfly doesn't have much mass. They also say there's no experiment that can prove gravity. Lily says that the Cavendish experiment does not prove gravity and is not even an experiment. Well, you know what, Lily? You're a fucking idiot. Here's Team Skeptic.
Hey, Fight the Flat Earth, you keep fighting the Flat Earth, and I'll handle this idiot for you. For those of you who don't know, Anthony Riley is a 3-time nominee and 2-time runner-up in Red's Rhetoric's annual Dumbfuck of the Year award, primarily for saying stupid shit like this.
No, well actually it's not really a viable argument to argue that it's a sphere but not be able to prove that curve, axial rotation or gravity.
We've already proven it's a sphere with thousands of photos that come out every year from space. Not to mention the work of geodesic surveyors is based on the sphericity of the Earth. The 2 axes of rotation can literally be seen at the equator. Looking north, all stars will appear to rotate around Polaris, and in the south, all stars seem to rotate around Sigma Octantis. This one observation proves that the Earth is at least a 3-dimensional object with 2 points of rotation on its surface. As far as gravity goes, we know from scientific experimentation that an accelerating force towards the surface does exist, and we call this force gravity. Cavendish's experiment proved that objects with mass do attract to one another, even inside of a separate and much larger gravitational force that's present.
But he refuses to accept that things that fall down are not caused by this fictional force called gravity.
Then what the fuck is the reason that things fall to the ground, you fucking idiot? Don't give me that density buoyancy bullshit either, as buoyancy is dependent upon an accelerating force to give the different densities a direction of alignment.
He refuses to accept that the balance or the likelihood or the probability, call it what you will, of something that is cited by Cavendish himself to be not greater than 50 million to 1 of the object's weight.
Anthony Riley, you're a fucking idiot. How can you proclaim to redefine physics when you don't even understand the conceptual difference between probability and ratios? You should really take the time out to understand what exactly Cavendish was saying instead of misrepresenting the quote altogether and looking like a dipshit. He didn't say there was a 50 million to 1 chance that this experiment would be due to gravity. He said that the force attracting the 2 masses was very minute, approximately 1/50 millionth of the force exerted by the mass of the balls. This has absolutely nothing to do with probability.
He doesn't seem to understand that the chances of that being the cause for what we observe is infinitesimally small.
And you don't seem to understand that what Cavendish actually stated was that the force he is measuring is 1/50 millionth that of the weight force exerted by the balls. This is a ratio between the magnitude of forces involved, not a probability of properly explaining the force causing the balls to gravitate towards each other. You're a fucking idiot.
And you guys are clinging on with desperation that this is the cause for your objects falling? No.
Well, until you or anyone else can provide a more suitable explanation as to why all objects with mass fall with the consistent acceleration of 9.8 meters per second squared, I'll just stick to the scientific consensus and the results of the repeatable Cavendish experiment. It's flat earth idiots that are desperate for any explanation other than gravity to explain this observation, as the concept of gravity proves that the flat earth is impossible.
If you really think that 1 in a million and not greater than is some kind of cause in science, you can't scale. You are a moron.
Yeah, none of that shit made sense whatsoever. 1 in 50 million implies probability, but 1/50 millionth implies a ratio, and how this relates to scale is beyond me. We are not morons, Anthony Riley. You are a fucking idiot.
1 in 50 million of the object's weight is not causation, guys. If you can't see that, you are stupid.
1 in 50 million? Don't you mean 1 in 50 millionth? You fucking idiot. 1 in 50 millionth describes the strength of the force between the 2 balls in relation to the strength of the force or the weight on the ball. I'm not here to go into detail about the Cavendish experiment, but it's not just the force of attraction between the 2 balls that causes them to gravitate towards each other as they do. You must exaggerate this force so that the force of attraction is amplified enough to make a measurement. I highly recommend researching the Cavendish experiment and how it has been improved over the years for increased accuracy.
This experiment really is very difficult to get to work. This experiment really is very difficult to get to work. This experiment really is very difficult to get to work.
So why is he saying that it's very difficult to get to work, right? Shouldn't it work all by itself?
Yeah, sure, Riley. We should just throw down 4 balls and the Cavendish experiment should just work all by itself, you fucking idiot. But also by this definition, shouldn't just the possession of an interferometer and a couple of mirrors mean that the Michelson-Morley experiment should just work all by itself too? Well, I guess that's about all the stupid I can take for right now. Hopefully I've lightened the load for Fight the Flat Earth, and he can find a way to push through the rest of today's Flat Earth bullshit. Fight the Flat Earth, back to you.
Thanks for that, team. If you guys aren't already subscribed to him, then you really should be, okay? One thing that amazes me about Flat Earthers is that they think with their incredibly limited intellect, they can still debunk all of science and the greatest minds that have ever existed. Liley does this more than most, and we've already showed how he can't compare simple images or even figure out simple triangles. Recently, Conspiracy Cats was debating on the Non Sequitur show and explained how we can actually figure out the circumference and size and what's inside the globe using seismic waves from earthquakes and stuff. We can figure out the epicenter and where we are on the globe because it's an exact science that has been done loads and loads. However, Liley came along with a video that said that this was all rubbish. I thought we would let Conspiracy Cats respond to that.
Conspiracy Cats. Tricuspid, bicuspid valves, aorta, ventricle, pulmonary artery. Sorry, just caught me. I was just doing some reading on the heart and the circulatory system. You see, I've read some definitions now about the heart, and I think I'm fully qualified to do a heart bypass surgery. So if anybody wants one, please leave a message in the comments, and I'll get round to you. I'll tell you what else. I was reading this book on children's mechanics before. I learned a little bit about the hydraulic system. I read a definition. So I feel like I can also come round and change your brake pads on your car for free. I've never done it before, but I've read some stuff, so I know more than enough to do that. You see, that's farcical, isn't it? Really farcical that reading a definition makes somebody think they're an expert. And yet Sleeping Warrior, who has no experience in geology, seismology, colouring in, right? No experience in any of those things, suddenly thinks that reading a paragraph, a definition of seismic waves, gives him enough information and understanding to debunk the whole science of seismology, to debunk the findings and the years of experience of all the geologists and seismologists who've used seismic waves to predict the epicenters of earthquakes and to figure out what the internal structure of the earth is. And he's managed to gain enough intelligence just to piss all over him because he's read a definition. I wonder what I need to do to perform a colonoscopy.
Thank you, and guys, if you haven't subscribed to Conspiracy Cats, then again, what the hell's wrong with you? Get that done now. And that's all for today. A few hours after this video comes out, I'm going to be live on the Non Sequitur show debating Ali B, and then come back tomorrow for the start of another new series called What the Flerf, where we look at a particular video that a Flerf has released. Make sure you like this video, you're subscribed, get the notification bell on. Thank you to my patrons, you guys are awesome, and remember, stupidity's not a right, fight the flat earth.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm Fight the Flat Earth and welcome back to the channel that hides stupidity's EpiPen and then throws peanuts at it. As this is Sleeping Warrior week, today is Sleeping Warrior's second episode of Flerfs Are Idiots. And this means he takes the title of being the first Flerf in existence to get 2 episodes. And you know what? I can guarantee that this will not be his last. Sleeping Warrior is the biggest idiot of them all. He thinks he knows what science is, says that only his version of scientific method is valid, and claims that density is a force. He can't work out the internal angles of a triangle without a calculator and claims that negative numbers aren't a thing. You can't get more of a perfect example of Dunning-Kruger than Anthony Riley. So join me and Team Skeptic as we prove that Flat Earthers, and especially Sleeping Warrior, are fucking idiots.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
This is a double-length episode, so pause the video right now, go make a cuppa, and come back with something to protect your face with, because you will be facepalming, like a lot. Before we start, I want to let you know what's coming up for the rest of the week. Wednesday, me and 5 fellow debunkers are doing the Roast of Riley, a live ripping apart of Anthony Liley. Thursday is the top 10 dumbest things ever said by Sleeping Warrior. Friday is me versus Riley round 2. There's also some more from me, videos from Planner Walk, Godless Engineer, The Casual Spaceman, The Creaky Blinder, Conspiracy Cats, AB Science, MC Toon, Bob the Science Guy, and more. Alright then, let's do this.
Okay, so when the eclipse happened in 2015 in England, I took some photos on my phone, couldn't see the moon.
Oh fuck me, I don't know if I can do this. Sleepy Warrior is talking about the partial eclipse on March the 20th, 2015, which peaked at 97% coverage, but only viewed from the Shetland Isles. And Liley is saying that the moon wasn't there. You know, in front of the sun. I don't know if I've got the strength for a whole week of this. Riley, what do you think caused the eclipse?
When the eclipse in 2017 was due to happen, I was on Sun and Moon group and I told everyone to go looking at the moon and see if anybody could see it. And when we got the results back, we didn't know what we were expecting, but we knew that we were going to be looking for the moon. All the evidence indicated that the moon was not present. Then Soundly pops up with Earthshine, and Earthshine was ridiculed and laughed at. It was a set-up trick from the start, because you can't get Earthshine.
And now he's denying that Earthshine is the thing. I mean, how much reality do you want to ignore?
But Soundly claims to have got it. Miles Davis also claims to have got it. So I tried to recreate a light source and then an eclipse to see what we should expect if we see an eclipse. So I've managed to get my glass ball ordered from America. It's got imperfections, which is perfect for what I want. I've got a telescopic variable focal LED light. I've got a laser. And I've got my normal plate. It's just a normal white plate that everybody can get. It's porcelain, I guess, or
Are you going to do what I think you're going to... Please don't do what I think you're going to do. Please don't try and use a torch and a crystal ball to simulate the sun and use the plate as a moon. Please, Liley. People watching this might hurt themselves.
The ball through this, and what's going to happen is it's going to create an image on the wall, but it's going to be 3-dimensional. Just like our sun.
Oh my God. I don't know where to start. You're trying to make a 3D image of a sun on a 2D surface using a crystal ball and a torch. Oh, fuck.
So I'll try and do it so that it's... There we go. There we go. Now, all I'm doing there is creating a 3-dimensional sun or a 3-dimensional moon or a 3-dimensional planet. And what you can see is that if I vary different elements of the light, I can get it to change its position. Now you can see there's a blue aura around it.
Guys, I'm broken. He's broken me. I know what's coming up. Please send help. This is hard to watch. Painful, even.
Now I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, but what I'm going to try and do is show the elements, the artifacts of the glass ball, or the imperfections of the glass ball, and get them to produce on the wall. There we go. Now I'm hoping that you can see that. Because they now look like sunspots. They look just like the sunspots.
Wait. I'm going to have to break this down because that level of stupidity actually takes some time to process. So, you're shining an LED torch through a crystal ball and seeing some artifacts which you say look like sunspots. So is the image on the wall the sun? Is the torch the sun and you're saying it shine through a glass ball and you're seeing a projection? Seriously, help me. How do you come to these conclusions? You dim-witted, mentally deficient window licker. Stop assaulting the IQ of the planet by uploading your drivel to the internet, please.
And the sunspots change over time. So it's almost like a glass ball is moving and the sunspots are part of the glass ball being projected onto the firmament and we're on the other side. Imagine that we're on the other side looking up. So we're looking up towards the light and seeing this on the other side of the wall.
Oh, so now there's a fucking firmament as well. Come on, man. We all know you don't believe in gravity, so if there's a firmament, you need to explain the pressure gradient to me right now. We do not live in a magic snow globe.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate the eclipse using the plate. And the whole point of this is to take a picture of it to see, do we get the imagery that we got? Now, this is where it's going to get awkward. Kind of need 3 hands. But if I get my light source, aim it onto the wall, and then I pass my plate in front of it, if I get the right size, I can create totality. Oh, let's just get this into the right place so that it can be seen. Right, where's the ball? There's the ball there.
Bless him fumbling around to get it lined up. This is hard to watch. Like, you know those super cringe moments in comedies where you can't even look at the screen? Yeah, I imagine that's a lot of you right now. And I have a feeling that he is missing the entire point here anyway. Let's continue.
The question becomes, do we have any element of the eclipse?
Earthshine. Earthshine.
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
I think you need to go to the remedial classroom to learn what Earthshine is, because it's not artifacts on a plate, Shadow. Alright class, settle down. Wait, where are Mr. Riley and Mr. Oakley? What, they wanted to go and hide in their echo chamber? Is this because of the George Musser interview? He said that George Musser's picking on him and he wanted to go and pretend that he's won? Well, that was stupid. He can't win anything. Not even a loser's competition. He's come second twice in Dumb Fuck of the Year. Mr. Pratt, take notes from Mr. Riley. He needs this lesson more than most. Why not? Oh, you can't read or write. Anyway, Earthshine. Earthshine is the visible light from Earth reflected off of Earth onto the dark side of the moon. This allows you to see the details of the dark side of the moon when you normally wouldn't. Most noticeable during the waxing or waning phases of the moon. So, sunlight is reflected off of the Earth onto the night side of the moon, making the night side of the moon glow faintly, and the entire disk of the moon is dimly lit. So there is no reason at all sunspots should be seen during Earthshine. Now, everybody go and watch the interview with George Musser so they can tell Riley how wrong he is. No, I'm not ready yet. The stupid is just too strong. I need a coffee to calm my nerves. Team Skeptic, you got this, yeah?
Hey guys, hey Fight. As always, I'm happy to help with fighting stupidity. Sorry it took so long to get you this video. When you said Sleeping Warrior weak, I didn't realize the boredom that comes with watching Lily would literally make me want to sleep for a week. So let's begin.
This is an egg. This is a parts per million counter. Inspired by Jaren's most recent video. If you haven't checked it out, go to his channel, and it's called something like How and Why I Drink Distilled Water. He used one of these and he measured the amount of particulates per million in his tap water. I decided that I could apply what he used, this little bit of technology, not science, this is technology. I could apply this technology and I could perform a practical scientific experiment where I could measure the density of a medium, in this case water, and I can make this egg move all by itself with just a little bit of salt.
As most of you know, Anthony Riley suffers from Dunning-Kruger, or maybe it's just mass stupidity, most likely from his years of education at Nathan Oakley's Institute of Independent Variables. And what's the deal with all these flat earth idiots wearing butcher smocks in their videos?
I can observe my phenomena to be that some objects appear to float, some objects appear to sink, some objects will suspend in different mediums. My hypothesis is if I change the medium's density, the egg will move. Newton said, if an object moves, a force is present. My null hypothesis is that if I change the density of the medium, the egg will not move. I will activate one of the hypotheses.
We will eventually get to what he gets wrong about the scientific method later in this video. However, I would suggest that the next time he is at Walmart, he returns his waiter's outfit for a dictionary. More than one hypothesis is not pronounced hypotheses. It's hypotheses, you idiot.
My independent variable, my presumed cause that I must manipulate in an experiment, is the density of the medium. My dependent variable is the movement of the egg. I will also try and keep everything else constant. The volumes of water, not will change, just the density of the medium. Let's see how I'm going to do this. This is my egg. This is my parts per million counter. This is going to measure the parts per million of both these fluids. This is tap water, regular tap water. That is the same tap water, but it's been preloaded to save some time with some salt from this to give it a density variation. It's going to measure the density of the tap water.
Well, there's your first problem right there, sleeping scientist. A ppm meter does not read density of anything. It reads the concentration or the presence of particulates of a certain size in a solution, which is usually water. The proper equipment to use would have been a hydrometer, which measures specific gravity, or a liquid's relative density compared to water. We will get into that later, but I'm not sure how much correct science can be done when using the wrong equipment, you idiot.
Okay, that's coming in at 212 parts per million tap water. Don't know what that means, it's just a number. It could be unicorn farts, it's just a number. So 212 is the recorded density of this one.
Wait, you just said you had no idea what the 212 meant, but now you're saying that it represents the density of water. 212 is a ratio that represents 212 particulates per 1 million molecules of water. It can only be used as a measurement of relative density when two requirements are met. First, the solutions must be identical, and second, the solvents must have an identical molar mass. Only then can you use a ppm meter to accurately compare relative densities. Since he never showed us the baseline reading of ppm in the second glass, his experiment by definition has nullified itself. But we will let this slide for now, as this isn't the only thing that Dr. Dumbass gets wrong today.
$208. Yeah, it's about 200. Then this one's about 300. Yeah, so it's 200 and 300, right? So one's got 100 more parts per million than the other. That tells me that there is a density variation between the two. So what we're going to do is we're going to see what happens when this egg is dropped into here. It sinks and it's touching the floor. Let's take the egg out. Now we'll see what happens when we put it into a more dense medium. So whilst I was settling down, this was done last night because it takes ages for it to dissolve and it get to a point where it's saturated. And I've got some residue at the bottom that is salt. So at the bottom at least it's getting relatively saturated. So I'm going to give it a stir to stir it up so that it evenly distributes a little bit better. Because what I'm hoping to do is get the egg so that it's just sat above the bottom of the thing. Some people will argue and complain and say that I shouldn't have stirred it, I should have left it as a gradient. It doesn't really matter, because what we're trying to establish is, if the medium is different, does it make a displacement? Does it force a displacement? If it forces a displacement, according to Newton, there is force.
Sleeping dipshit. Don't cherry pick Isaac Newton, because that's not what he said. Newton said that a mass will change its velocity, whether by direction or speed, if and only if an unbalanced force acts upon it. If gravity is pulling down on an object and another force like the buoyant force is pushing up on the object, then there is a balanced force acting upon the object. Now in your example, by adding the salt to the water, you are not only increasing the density of the water, but you're also increasing the buoyant force, causing an unbalanced force to be acting upon the egg, and the egg will begin to accelerate upwards. But, by all means, don't let me stop you from being stupid.
This is just normal table salt from your favourite supermarket. other supermarkets are available. We can tell that the density of the egg is equal to the part in the glass where the liquid is. What I'm now going to try and prove is that if I change the density of the medium, I will cause the effect by adding salt. So if I can change it, because I'm the experimenter and I'm manipulating my presumed cause, my independent variable is the medium, that egg moves, I've caused it. We know the parts per million is about 300. All we need to do is pour some of this in. Hey, what do you know? The eggs immediately moved. Didn't have to wait for that, did we? So, what's the explanation? Well, I'm going to measure this now. This isn't going to be much more above 300. However, if it reads anything above 300, then that'll do for me. How do I reset? There we go. So the density is reading around about 309, 308, 309. If you can have a look at that on the camera if you want to zoom in. But I've just made the egg move.
No, Lily, you didn't make the egg move. You simply changed the density of the solution. But by changing the density of the solution, you also change the buoyant force acting upon the egg. This is why the egg stops accelerating upwards when it reaches a point where the forces acting upon it are balanced.
So what's the cause? Well, scientific method states that the independent variable is the presumed cause, and I presumed that changing the density of the liquid with salt would cause a displacement. Newton's first law of motion states that every object will remain at rest unless acted upon by a force, and I've obviously created a force.
You have such a simple mind. You haven't created a force, you have manipulated an independent variable in the buoyancy equation, and by doing so you have obviously increased the force that was already present. We will get into more detail about that in a moment, but let's let stupid be stupid for now.
The density of the medium has displaced the egg. The egg moved. That's an accelerating mass. So therefore, Newton states that there is a force. I caused it with this. So in scientific method, the cause of the displacement is this. I've caused it. I've manipulated it. I added the salt. It caused something. I did it. I'm within scientific method. If you assert that gravity in any way caused something in this experiment, that means you are adding a secondary cause. Adding by inference. If you add a secondary cause by inference, you fall outside of scientific method because you can't infer an extra cause when you've already got one that you've manipulated.
Your gross misunderstanding of Newton's laws of motion and the scientific method should be classified as criminal. You are not inferring a cause if that cause is being completely disregarded by the experimenter. That means the experimenter is making up his own rules and therefore falls under the category of idiot science. Riley, why is the egg in suspension to begin with? Using only Isaac Newton's laws of motion, can you explain why the egg is not accelerating towards the earth like it would be outside of the water? You can't pick and choose when you want to apply the laws of motion, and when you do apply them, you can't pick and choose what the definition of the law is. This is pseudoscientific if anything was.
You can't infer a secondary cause and remain within scientific method. If you wish to move outside of scientific method, sure, be my guest. Infer that gravity caused in any way whatsoever the effect that we just witnessed, which was the egg moving. But you do so outside of scientific method. And we know by definition, if you are not complying with scientific method, you are practicing pseudoscience.
Okay, so time to really start pointing out the stupid spewing from the idiot fountain wearing the chef's garment. First things first, how did the egg and salt get into the water without a force being present to move it? You see, Riley, you just can't apply the laws of motion when you want to. So if there must be a force present for mass to accelerate, and you can't infer that gravity is present, then you must explain how the salt or egg began moving to begin with.
I am staying within scientific method, And I am using my cause and my effect relationship, and I am demonstrating it with using this. I've changed the density of the medium and the egg has displaced. Within scientific method, the cause is that and only that. You cannot infer extra causes. That takes you outside of scientific method. So, in anticipation of any reaction to this this experiment in the video underneath or the comments underneath, if you assert that there is gravity acting on this in any way whatsoever, you are outside of scientific method and engaged in practicing pseudoscience.
Anthony Riley, please listen to me carefully. You are a fucking idiot. Your understanding and explanation of the scientific method is incorrect or incomplete at best. Let me give you an example. I form a hypothesis that if I press A on my keyboard, an A will appear on screen. I press A and an A shows up. Therefore, hypothesis proven true, right? Well, what about when the computer is turned off? Or what about if the keyboard is unplugged? Does that same hypothesis still hold true under those circumstances? Oh, it doesn't? So by not taking all factors into account, I've essentially proven nothing. Now, if you try to do your dumbass experiment in free fall, it wouldn't make a difference how much salt you have in the water. The egg will do whatever it wants. Only once you are no longer in free fall will your scientific experiment have any significance whatsoever, but only when you account for all the forces involved. Therefore, your science fair project doesn't explain shit, and you are an idiot.
Unless you can show me a citation within scientific method that allows you to disregard the cause, the salt, the medium change, and then substitute an alternative one instead, or including adding to, then you are outside of scientific method. You are practicing pseudoscience.
Not a problem, idiot. Because according to Jove.com, a website dedicated to educational science, the experiment design is almost as important as the formulation of the hypothesis. Let me read a small section from their website covering the scientific method, and a link will be in the description for the whole article. Experimental design is another critical step in the scientific method and can have a great effect on the results and conclusions one draws from an experiment. Careful thought and time should be devoted to experimental design and minimizing possible errors. The experiment should be designed so that every variable or factor that could influence the outcome of the experiment be under the control of the researcher. In other words, your experiment means fuck all if it doesn't take all forces and factors into account. This clip shows that buoyancy is nullified during free fall. Therefore, your experiment means nothing until you can explain this observation using your hypothesis. And good luck doing that without the force of gravity.
Just by way of footnote, it's interesting to think that the mass of the Earth is below this table. The huge Earth ball that we're supposed to live on. And that is pulling that egg down, isn't it? Apparently. Yet when I added an extra bit of mass to this, the mass below the egg is increased. But for some reason the egg went up.
Well, it's not our fault that you don't understand how buoyancy and pressure are related. You didn't necessarily just add mass beneath the egg, but you also added mass above the egg as well. By doing this, the force pulling down on the mass of water above the egg is increased, therefore increasing the force needing to hold it up. This increase in pressure is at all depths, which is not the same thing as increasing the density. In fact, the density of the water could be completely consistent top to bottom, and the egg will still float at the same level. This is because neutral buoyancy is attained when the pressure acting down from the surface of the egg is equal to the pressure pushing up to support the weight of the egg. For instance, if you put a second egg that's exactly the same in size and shape and perfectly on top of the first egg, both eggs will sink slightly, even though the density of the combined two eggs is the same as the density of just one egg. What has changed? Well, the total mass of the submerged eggs has changed, while the surface area at the bottom of the combined eggs has not. This results in an increased pressure pulling down on the eggs, causing them to sink until the pressure from the buoyant force is equal. Once the pressures have equalized, the eggs will begin to suspend again.
If mass really attracts mass, why didn't the egg go down? It's a rhetorical question, I don't want any answer.
Yeah, we already know that you don't want that answer. You have never wanted that answer because you're a gravity-denying flat earth idiot. But why don't you ask yourself why the egg went down when you put it in the water in the first place? Or why did the salt move when you poured it out of the box into the water? You quoted Newton's first law of motion enough to at least accept these observations as needing similar explanations. This is why your experiment is pointless. You disregard reality as you please. And until you accept, explain, and include all aspects of reality, then you should give this experiment to an elementary child for their science fair project. Because any adult that thinks this is actual science is a fucking idiot.
The effect was it increased a little bit of pressure at the bottom, which displaced the egg. It moved. Newton said there was a force. So I've caused it. I did it with the salt. Gravity didn't do it. It wasn't the independent variable, was it? Can you science, bro?
Okay, so to finish this off, I'm just going to point out one more flaw in Dr. Dickhead's experiment, and this one is purely mathematical. If force equals mass times acceleration, which he accepts as shown on the screen, and density is a force defined as force equals mass divided by volume, then we can combine the two equations to say that mass times acceleration equals mass divided by volume. Canceling out the mass on both sides, we come to the mathematical conclusion that based on this hypothesis, the acceleration of an object is equal to the inverse of its volume. Now, if this were true, then when two objects with the same mass were dropped in a vacuum chamber, where the only difference is that one object has half the volume, the object that is twice as dense should also fall twice as fast, which is not what we see in reality. In a vacuum chamber, all objects of all densities fall at the same rate. Sorry, flat earthers, but the earth is not flat, and Sleeping Warrior is a fucking idiot. Back to you, Fight.
Thanks, team. Guys, if you're not already subbed to Team Skeptic, then do that now. And also subscribe to our new channel, Science or Satire, where episode 1.0 will be after Sleeping Warrior Week. Anyway, a quick one before we go. If you think you've seen the limits of stupidity, then hold Sleeping Warrior's beer. You ain't seen nothing yet. This video he titled, "This is what a solar eclipse should look like." I'll play the whole thing, and I've added some music to keep you entertained. And so you, Sleeping Warrior, think that an eclipse should be the moon rising in the sky at a 45-degree angle, stopping for no reason on the sun for a little bit, then travelling off at 90 degrees, changing direction for no reason. And I'm done. The stupid burns. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this and come back tomorrow for the roast of Anthony Riley with me, Sean Hufford, Planner Walk, Geostriver, Conspiracy Cats and Team Skeptic. Like this video, subscribe and share and all that lovely stuff. And just before we go, I want to say a massive thank you to all my patrons. Your support allows me time to focus on my channel and do what's important, bringing you great content and fighting the flat earth. I want to say an extra massive thank you to my $200 patrons, Christopher Kane and Jeffrey Sloan. If you'd like to join and become part of the FTFE team, go to patreon.com/FTFE. And thank you. Remember to share this video on Sleeping Warriors Discord, and remember, stupidity is not alright. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat, 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 Hey, I'm Fight the Flat Earth and welcome back to the channel that does to stupidity what the governor did to Herschel Green. I hope you're all enjoying Sleeping Warrior Week. Me and him were supposed to be finishing off the week with a debate, but he's gone and chickened out. And along with that debate, I was going to do a video that kind of let you inside the mind of Anthony Riley, the two-time runner-up for Dumbfuck of the Year. You're not getting the debate, but I'm still going to do that video. I warn you now though, his mind is a dark and scary place full of stupidity and ego beyond measure. So guys, this is the top 10 dumbest things ever said by Sleeping Warrior.
We're living on a disc floating through space with a tiny sun.
Anthony Riley, aka Sleeping Warrior, aka Lily, is stupid as fuck. He's so dense that frankly, I'm surprised he doesn't collapse into a black hole and destroy the planet. He's such a complete and utter moron that making a top 10 was a really hard thing to do. There's so much idiocracy that I just couldn't decide what should be in a top 10. But I'm going to take a bash at it anyway. A massive shout out to Sean Hufford and his playlist of over 60 Lily interactions. Let's kick off his stupidity with an astounding revelation that no one has ever repeated the Bedford level experiment. Yeah, he really said that. The Bedford level experiment was actually repeated many times, first by Samuel Parallax Rowbotham, who repeated his original experiment no less than 6 times. It was then repeated by Alfred Wallace in response to the famous wager, then more times by Rowbotham, then in 1903 by H.U. Oldham, then in 1904 by Lady Blunt, who tried to recreate the experiment with photos for the first time. Then of course we have the fantastic display of ineptitude when the Flat Earth community themselves tried to recreate the experiment, led by allegedly Dave, aka I've Got Magic Piss. For more about that, check out my video I did with Scientist Mel on the Bedford level experiment. Anthony Riley once made the claim that square miles and the mile squared are the same thing. Whoa. Please go to the remedial classroom. Right class, settle down and stop trying to stick the crayons up your nose, Mr. Oakley. Okay, surprise, surprise, Mr. Riley got something wrong again. Did you just ask me for a citation that you got something wrong, Mr. Riley? Well, every test paper I've ever marked for you is a pretty good indicator. And your recent video where you tried to measure density with a parts per million meter that actually measures the electrical conductivity of a fluid and not density. Oh, and the playlist for Sleeping Warrior Week, which has over 20 videos from the community. Anyway, Mr. Riley, you said that the square mile and miles squared are the same thing. Here is why you are an idiot. The square mile is an imperial and US unit of measure for an area equal to the area of a square with a side length of 1 statute mile. It should not be confused with miles square, which refers to a square region with each side having the specified length. For instance, 20 miles squared has an area equal to 400 square miles. A rectangle of 10 times 40 miles likewise has an area of 400 square miles, but it is not 20 miles square. Now, Mr. Riley, I'd like you to come and write lines on the board that say, I will not chicken out from a debate agreement 1,000 times. When faced with the evidence of the Earth's rotation that is the Foucault pendulum, Anthony Riley uploaded this fantastic display of Flat Earth research. Do you even Google, bro?
Paul Michel Foucault. The guy we all know for the pendulum effect. Apparently it shows the rotation of the Earth. What do we know about Foucault? Not that much really. French, pendulums, that's about it. That's all we know about him. This is the guy. He died in 1988. 1984, aged 57. Does anybody know what he died of? I didn't know what he died of. Presumably old age. There's not that much in it, but for the fact that he was gay, openly gay. He died of HIV, and that's about as much as you can tell. Everything else in here is generally it's not that, not that interesting. There's not that much in it. One thing I want to show you is that if you do a Control and F in here and type in pendulum, no mention of the pendulum. Foucault's pendulum is supposed to show the rotation of the Earth. Wouldn't you think that if that was true, it would at least get a mention in his Wikipedia page?
To see that full clip, check it out on the channel Surf Perzel. Now, Anthony tried to discredit the Foucault pendulum by attacking the character of Michel Foucault. Anthony Riley, you stupid motherfucker. The Foucault pendulum is credited to Leon Foucault, a French physicist that died 52 years before Michel Foucault was even born. Riley once claimed that you can see stars through a solar filter. He claimed that these stars were stars that had never been charted. He's so wrong that it hurts. What he was seeing was in fact just dead or hot pixels. You wouldn't see stars for a solar filter, sleeping dumbass, as solar filters filter out over 99.99% of light. The man that wanted to be a lawyer, that once had the court say to him, and I quote, "The court is at a loss as to how Mr. Riley has reached this conclusion," also had the incredible revelation that the harvest moon, or hunter moon, a name given to full moons in late summer and early autumn in the northern hemisphere, was 8 to 10 times the size of a normal moon. 8 to 10 times, for flat feet Pete's sake. Anthony, do you not think that the several billion people that live in the northern hemisphere would have noticed that happening? Are you guys starting to see why this was such a hard list to make? So, Sleeping Warrior doesn't understand the difference between odds and a ratio. Just listen to this. Oh wait, before you do, make sure you've got facepalm protection. Oh shit. It's a bit late to be saying that, isn't it? I kind of should have said that at the start. I'm totally getting sued.
He refuses to accept that the balance or the likelihood or the probability, call it what you will, of something that is cited by Cavendish himself to be not greater than 50 million to 1 of the object's weight. He doesn't seem to understand that the chances of that being the cause for what we observe is infinitesimally small.
We're getting into dangerous territory now, guys. The stupid here gets so strong that you're going to taste it in the morning. He once said that you should get a solar eclipse every month.
Anthony Riley is an expert when it comes to eclipses, right?
A solar eclipse will happen every single month.
See? Absolute genius.
And the reason we don't see them, he says, is that these solar eclipses that happen every month happen out at sea. Fuck me, that's stupid. Ooh, top 3. Sleepy Warrior says that time cannot be an independent variable. Really? Really? This is one that most of you will know about. When asked to demonstrate his intelligence with a simple maths question regarding the internal angles of a triangle, this happened.
Anthony, if a triangle has the sides 1 and 1, do you know what the angles of the triangle are?
Which kind of triangle are you on about? Are you on about like a right angle triangle?
The triangle has sides 1, 1, and 1. Do you know what the angles are?
The angles would be... Well, it would be an equilateral triangle, wouldn't it?
Right, so what are the angles? Now I'm going to ask this again. If you have a triangle with sides of 1, 1, and 1, what are the angles?
I'm gonna pull up a triangle calculator.
Let's do this again. Anthony, a triangle has sides 1, 1, and 1. What are the angles? Is somebody recording this? Because this is just priceless.
Well, the one I'm using it's not giving me any when I do it. So either this calculator is wrong or you're wrong.
We have a triangle with sides of 1, 1, and what are the angles?
Yeah, so that's an equilateral triangle, right?
Right, so what are the angles?
Does that work on a right angle triangle?
The sides are 1, 1, and 1. What are the angles?
When is that ever used in astronomical calculations for measuring trig?
And number 1, the dumbest thing Riley has ever said actually happened within the last week. During my interview with George Musser, which was in response to Riley misrepresenting him, Musser confirmed that my explanation of gravity was correct. The way that I describe it, and I would like to see if you agree with this, is that gravity is the warping of space-time by mass, which changes the locality of things, which manifests within physics that we can measure as an accelerating force.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And I like the word manifestation. I mean, science...
Riley has seen this, which completely destroys his stupid argument, and somehow still claimed victory. Here's the comment that he left me. He didn't support you at all. He's an academic that was polite to you when you were wrong. The denial was incredible. Apparently, George was just being nice, so he didn't disagree with me. He in fact backed Riley up and confirmed that the Cavendish is not valid. The stupid. It burns. And that's it for now, because that's all I can take. And as I said, this was a hard list to make, so I think there will be a follow-up video soon. But before I go, I want to say a massive thank you to all my patrons. Your support allows me time to focus on my channel and do what's important, bringing you great content and fighting the flat earth. I want to say an extra massive thank you to my $200 patrons, Christopher Kane and Jeffrey Sloan. If you'd like to join and become part of the FTFE team, go to patreon.com/FTFE. And thank you. Thank you for watching to the end, and I'd like to thank Riley. Because of him, I'm now in contact with someone actually in the scientific community, and we're doing a worldwide experiment to measure the circumference of our planet. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat, 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 Hey, I'm FTFE, and welcome back to the channel that murders stupidity. In public. Where everyone can see it. There isn't many flat earthers that say new things. Normally, it's just some garbled version of Eric Dubay's 200 proofs regurgitated by someone with an IQ scraping around somewhere near the bottom of the barrel. So it amazes me, and endlessly humours me, that there is one flat earther who continuously pumps out the stupid with alarming regularity. This is a flat earther so stupid and meme-worthy that he's actually placed second, twice in a row on Red Rhetoric's annual Dumbfuck of the Year award. And this year, he has said a whole bunch of monumentally stupid things that I think are more than worthy of getting him a win this time around. He's wrong about everything. All of the time. Is so stubborn he can't even admit when he's wrong, and seems to be getting stupider as the years pass. This is the first flat earther to get his third episode of Flerfs Are Idiots. He's back for episode 32. It's the one, the only, thank God, Sleeping Warrior.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Thank you for joining me once again for a look into the mind of an idiot. There's much of a mind there though, and what there is operates at about 1% of capacity. Anyway, Sleeping Warrior is the biggest idiot of all time. I've honestly not come across anyone so stupid before in my entire life. There's so much stupid that I don't know where to start, so I guess we'll start with looking at his research skills, with an example of how good they are. On my channel recently, Red's Rhetoric made an appearance in debate against a man with the worst beard I've ever seen, Howard George Stirrup. During the debate, Red counters Howard's "Moonlight is Cold" nonsense by referencing a video done by fellow debunker Astronomy Live.
Well, you still had 6.5 minutes left because I paused the timer every time I interrupted you.
Oh, have I got time left? Can I put my other points in?
No, you were supposed to be rebutting the evidence. Oh, Howard, don't interrupt me. You were supposed to be rebutting the evidence that Reds brought, which I'm going to just declare you failed miserably. So, Reds, would you like to address the evidence that he brought?
Sure. Tell me when.
So, Go.
Okay, I'm going to just put this to you, Craig. Just make sure it makes it into the description. It is a video from Astronomy Live showing that moonlight is not colder, whatever the hell that means. So anyway, gravity is irrelevant to the shape of the Earth. Gravity is not the same as geometry. Astronomy Live debunked the cold water, the cold light, moonlight thing on his channel 2 years ago. Meteorites explode, which make round craters. GMO is irrelevant to the shape of the Earth. Soviet brainwashing is irrelevant to the shape of the Earth. Nixon being a douchebag is irrelevant to the shape of the Earth. Aerosols is irrelevant to the shape of the Earth. EMF safety levels and no Wi-Fi zones is also irrelevant to the shape of the Earth. Dr. Kenneth Lee Clark wasn't involved in cosmology or space science, therefore is irrelevant to the shape of the Earth. Taylor Swift and Secret Messages and Beavis and Butthead Do America is irrelevant to the shape of the Earth. Princess Diana's family connections is also irrelevant to the shape of the Earth. Climate change is not a question of geometry, therefore is irrelevant to this discussion. Blood transfusions are also irrelevant to the shape of the Earth, and numerology can be used to prove anything, like the time I used it to prove that Russian Biz had a sexual relationship with O.J. Simpson and he was the bottom bitch. I'm done.
As you can see, the video Red's rhetoric is referencing plays in the background as Red sent me the link on Google Hangouts and I loaded it into the vMix software as he started that specific debunk. Although first I do want to point out how many of these little moments on my channel Riley captures. Hey Clucking Warrior. But yeah, he made a video about that section and demonstrated how little research flat earthers do. Let's let Riley dig his own grave.
Okay, so Reds has just demonstrated what he relies upon for demonstrating that moonlight is not colder. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pop this little window out so it can be seen bigger. I've got the resolution turned up to the biggest it can be. And what I'm going to do is show how this basically is the most inconclusive sack of shit I've ever seen. So Astronomy Live, whoever this guy is, this is what Reds accepts is proof of moonlight being cold or not cold, right? Let's look at what we see in this. We can imagine the setup. He's got moonlight on the left hand side, he's got shade on the right. Weather obviously colder on the left, warmer on the right. This is what Reds accepts to be true. Right? Watch this. There's nothing on screen there, can't see it, it's blurred, out of focus, can't see shit. Now we see 65.8, but watch what happens. After a couple of frames, the 65.8, I'm going to say the 65.8 was what was on the shade side, and then the camera, and then the thing changes. I'm going to say that's lead time, that's ping, that's lag, 57.7. It seems to me that when he had his infrared thermometer on this side, whatever that figure is, which we can't see, is what's on screen there. So he's got 65.8. I think that the 65.8 is what he had on this side. Now this is the most stupid demonstration of moonlight being cold I've ever seen. Yet this is what Reds accepts. So let's see that again. Moonlight's on the left, that will be colder. Shade on the right, that will be warmer. We can't see shit on the shade side. Intentional, maybe?
So, he attacks the video from Astronomy Live because he correctly, don't worry, he's still not right, points out the poor example and bad methodology of the person doing the apparent moonlight temperature test. And here's the kicker. That section of the clip that Sleeping Warrior showed is from a flat earther. Doing it wrong, as he said. Which, if he'd actually watched the video from Astronomy Live, he'd have known and not made a video making himself look stupid. Again. I mean, it's not like we even made it difficult to find.
Okay, I'm going to just put this to you, Craig. Just make sure it makes it into the description. It is a video from Astronomy Live showing that moonlight is not colder, whatever the hell that means.
Hi folks, Astronomy Live here. In the video you see playing from Dan Rostov's channel, the claim is made that moonlight makes objects colder.
We said the video was going to be in the description, and it was in the description. So it's only Riley that's to blame for not actually doing the research and watching the video that he is talking about. Riley even did a follow-up video saying that Reds and I were being dishonest after his mistake was pointed out to him, instead of admitting that he was wrong, proving he isn't only stupid, but dishonest and stupid. What, is that not stupid enough? Oh, don't worry, there's so much more. Next up, Riley misunderstands gravity, density, and buoyancy all in one fell swoop. It's Sleeping Warrior's famous density tower.
Okay everybody, today we're going to paint like Bob Ross. We're going to start off with my famous density tower.
Why'd you call it your famous density tower, Riley? Back to the old flat earth research fail here, because a quick reverse image search finds that that particular density tower was first seen in a video on the website stevespanglerscience.com on the 8th of December 2010, long before your dumbass was on the scene. So no, not yours at all. What you're famous for, Riley, is for being a fucking idiot.
And for this illustration, we're going to think that we are the cherry tomato in the middle. So we are the cherry tomato in the middle. Let's remove all the labels so that we don't have any of the labels.
Yeah, let's just get rid of all the labels. We don't need to actually know what any of those things are, do we? Just as long as we know that we are the cherry tomato, I guess?
And we're going to give these numbers later. So let's add some artifacts. Now that we've got rid of all of the numbers, let's going to add some elements to the picture. We'll start with some ground. This is the ground and the cherry tomato is now on the ground. And we need to give these values some numbers so that we can make sense of these things.
Right, so after taking away the actual labels, you're just going to relabel them with arbitrary numbers. And we're going to get rid of the bottom half of the density tower and just replace it with the ground. This is very scientific, Anthony. Keep going. We're all learning something. It's not what you think we're learning, but trust me, we're learning something.
Not that difficult. We'll call the ground 1,000. We'll give the arbitrary value of the human to be about 70. And we'll give all the other layers some numbers. We'll finish up at the top with 1.5 for the ping pong ball. And then we'll change the ping pong ball into a sun. And then all of a sudden it's beginning to look a lot like our world, don't you think?
No, I don't think. I've got so many questions. What's causing the arrangement of densities? Why isn't it arranged the other way round? Are we only 7 times denser than the air at sea level? Are you asserting the sun is lighter than air and it's just floating up there? Does the density just keep going up below 1? No, Lily. I don't think it looks or is in any way representative of reality. At all.
So now let's give it some water. We'll give the water the value of 67 because we know that humans can drown in water without the ability to swim.
Oh shit, how far are we into the video? Guys, get your facepalm protection ready if you haven't already. This is Riley we're dealing with here. You gave us, humans, the density value of 70, but the water has a density value of 67, when humans are actually less dense than water. It's why we float. Of course, if we take on extra water and start to drown, then we will increase our density and sink. But on the whole, humans are less dense than water. Your lovely drawing is looking less and less like reality the longer you go on. But please do continue. We all need someone to laugh at.
And now I think we'll have some clouds, some stratos and cumulonimbus. So we'll stick them some stratos clouds, they're the lower levels, we'll give them the value of 8.7, and the cumulonimbus clouds will give you the value of 4.2 because they're a little bit higher in the atmosphere. It's beginning to look a lot like a landscape environment now, don't you think? Let's consider the elements that make up the atmosphere. We know that nitrogen and oxygen are the main component elements to the atmosphere. So we'll bear that in mind in the volume, instead of the volume, but they're 2 labels that we're going to use for the layers of the atmosphere.
Yeah, let's consider the components of the atmosphere, shall we? Carbon dioxide has a density of around 1.98 kilograms per meter cubed, and the density of oxygen is around 1.4 kilograms per meters cubed. So why aren't we all suffocating in a band of CO2? All the oxygen should be up in higher altitudes.
And we also know that all of the gases have got atomic weights. So when we look to what the atomic weights are in the periodic table, we can see that nitrogen and oxygen are both 7 and 8. They're numbered 7 and 8 in the periodic table.
No, sleeping dumbass. The atomic weight of oxygen and nitrogen is not 7 and 8. That is simply their atomic number. How many protons they contain, which defines what they are. Hydrogen is 1 and it goes all the way up to Uganison at 118. This is not their atomic weight. Their atomic weight, or atomic mass, is slightly less than the sum of the masses of all their constituent protons, neutrons and electrons. It's slightly less due to the binding energy mass loss as described in the famous equation E equals mc squared.
And we know that as you go further down the table, they've got different elemental weights. So we know that the environment that we're breathing has these elements to it. So we can stick all these elements in. We'll just label them up as such. And we can see, all of a sudden, it begins to look very explainable without this so-called downwards acceleration force that's not a force, that everybody wants to be a force, but isn't there. And even if it is there, nobody can prove it, but nonetheless, we're demanded that we accept that it is there.
You're never going to get this, are you? Gravity is a force, if you're talking about Newtonian physics. It's an obvious, measurable, detectable force that is explained perfectly by the equation Fg equals g m1 m2 over r squared. But we know it's not really a force. It's an effect of the warping of space-time by mass that makes everything fall into it. That falling into the curvature of space-time is measured as a force, and this is what Einstein told us, and what George Musser confirmed when I directly asked him in an interview. And I see your little get out clause there of the sun mixes everything up. No, according to you, the sun is really light and is moving at 15 degrees per hour across the sky. If it's small and local, then that isn't very fast and won't mix up anything. In your world governed by your magical density and buoyancy, we'd still be suffocating on CO2. But it's okay because it isn't just density and buoyancy, is it? There's a force, isn't there? And we know what that force is, don't we? There's a file.
Gravity, you fucking retard! Gravity! Have you ever heard of fucking gravity? Gravity! Gravity!
Whatever we live in, we don't need a downwards acceleration force. Everything is relative to us, and this pictorializes for everybody how really straightforward our world really is. I hope this makes sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. At all. Not until you can explain what the sun is, why it's got such a tiny density value, and where's the moon in your picture? And what is the moon? And while you're at it, can you explain the tides, Coriolis force, Eötvös, gyroscopes, pendulums? Oh my god, you're so fucking stupid it burns. Just go to the remedial classroom, you muppet.
Okay, everyone, shut up and sit down. I'm the substitute teacher, Mr. Katz, and I'm here today because your normal teacher can't cope with your stupidity anymore and has had a nervous breakdown. I'm sure this has been covered already, but you still don't understand why buoyancy and density aren't a replacement for gravity. Yeah? What is it, Mr. Riley? You're Mr. Riley. I read your thesis, you know, best laugh I've had all year. Anyway, shut up. Okay, so let's make this simple. Gravity acts as a force which pulls objects downwards. Now, in the case of something that's floating on water, it's not being pulled downwards, it's floating, which means there's a force in the opposite direction. We call that force upthrust or buoyancy. Now, the amount of upthrust or the amount of buoyancy is going to depend on how much water has been displaced by the object in the water. Density doesn't fit into either one of those things because density isn't a force, it doesn't have a direction, it's not a vector. Density is literally just the mass per unit volume of the object. Okay, that's time. Your homework is figuring out how to get dressed on your own and learning to tie your shoelaces. Your normal teacher will be back next week if he is recovered from your stupidity. I'm surprised, though, that with all of you here, that this amount of density in one room hasn't collapsed into a black hole and destroyed the universe.
Paul Michel Foucault, the guy we all know for the pendulum effect. Apparently it shows the rotation of the Earth. What do we know about Foucault? Not that much really. French, pendulums, that's about it. That's all we know about him. This is the guy. He died in 1988, 1984, aged 57. Does anybody know what he died of? I didn't know what he died of. Presumably old age. There's not that much in it, but for the fact that he was gay, openly gay, he died of HIV, and that's about as much as you can tell. Everything else in here is generally not that, not that interesting. There's not that much in it. One thing I want to show you is that if you do a Control and F in here and type in pendulum, no mention of the pendulum. Foucault's pendulum is supposed to show the rotation of the Earth. Wouldn't you think that if that was true, it would at least get a mention in his Wikipedia page?
We aren't done yet, guys, because Riley just can't stop being wrong. Here's the video he put together to try and disprove the Earth's rotation. It's a bit of a boring video, so I added a dramatic voiceover to make it more interesting.
Scientific method. Step 1. Observe a phenomena. The sun appears to go down. Step 2. Hypothesis. What causes that? We are told the Earth is turning. This is the presumed cause. Step 3. Experiment. Can we see the proof we are turning, please? We want the presumed cause. Proving, I think he means proven. Scientifically, we want measurements of Earth turning. Without any doubt, show that it is the Earth moving. Prove that it is not the lights turning, or just admit that you cannot prove the Earth is turning, scientifically after all. Then we can do the same with gravity.
You want an experiment that shows Earth is rotating? Sure. No worries. Bob?
If the Earth is spinning at one rotation every 24 hours, that means that every hour it has to turn 15 degrees. And if the gyroscope is mounted anywhere on Earth, it's going to drift. In today's 21st century navigation systems, they're using what's called a ring laser gyroscope. It is extremely precise. If we could simply get one of these ring laser gyroscopes, we would be able to prove once and for all that there is no rotation to the Earth. One of the people in the community actually purchased one for $20,000. But what we found is when we turned on that gyroscope, we found that we were picking up a drift, a 15 degree per hour drift.
Cheers, Bob. Oh, is that not enough? Well, there's also this experiment from the gentleman physicist that uses a homemade Foucault's pendulum to physically observe the rotation of the Earth and use the resulting angle from the drift of the pendulum to calculate his latitude and distance away from the North Pole. Riley, will you ever get anything right?
A solar eclipse will happen every single month. And why? Because it takes 27 days, 27 point something days for the moon to orbit the Earth. So at some point it's going to cross the sun. And it does it every single month. Now, I have no explanation for why it takes every 100 years for America to get one, because the law of probability dictates that it should be every few years, but we're being told it's once every 100 years. So there is a solar eclipse every month. The only problem is we don't see it because it's usually over the water. So you can bet me £1,000 because you have to come up with the reason for why it's not when the moon orbits the Earth once every month, you Burke. I bet you £1,000 solar eclipses happen every single month. The issue is we never see them because they're normally over the Earth, normally over the water.
Next up, we have an excellent combination of Riley's stupidity and dishonesty mixed together. Riley was over on Quantum Eraser's channel talking about an apparent letter that Einstein was sent by the University of Bern in Switzerland, rejecting him for a position at the university. Let's listen to him talking about the letter.
All right, so this is University of Bern, dated 1907, June 1907. Dear Mr. Albert Einstein, Your application for the doctorate has not been successful at this time, and as such, you are not eligible for the position of Associate Professor. Now, this is the most important bit. Whilst you posed an interesting theory in your article published Annalen der Physik, we feel that your conclusion about the nature of light and the fundamental connection between space and time are somewhat radical. Overall, we find your assumption to be more artistic than actual physics. Now, when I first read this back in the day, a couple of years ago, I read it as, oh, we got rejected first time round, and I didn't think any more of it. But the fact that now when I look at this with a bit more down the experience line, I look at it and I think, so they've actually rejected it because it wasn't actual physics. They must be referencing scientific method when they're referencing actual physics, and to reject it on the grounds of artistic, they're actually referencing pseudoscience. So I guess what they're doing here, the way I interpret this, is that they're being polite and professional and saying, you're a pseudoscientist. John, would you agree?
Oh, where to begin? So let's start with the fact that this letter is apparently from the University of Bern in Switzerland, where one of its 4 national languages is German. And they're writing to a German person who speaks German, obviously. So why is the letter in English? Because, as I've said, Switzerland has 4 national languages: German, French, Italian, and Romanian. So there's no reason at all that this letter should be written in English. Next, let's take a look at the person that apparently wrote that letter. It says it's from the Professor Wilhelm Henrich, PhD, who is Dean of Sciences. Now that's an issue because the letter is dated 1907, and in 1907 the subjects of science and philosophy were still very much connected, so the position of Dean of Sciences didn't even exist when this letter was apparently written. The stamp next to the non-existent Dean of Sciences is for some reason the coat of arms of Hungary. In 1907, Hungary didn't exist as it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, a major European power at the time. So that coat of arms didn't exist. And finally, Riley made a massive mistake. He cropped the letter to try and hide this. Stamps with the face of Albert Einstein on. Why would the University of Bern be sending a letter to an unknown German person using stamps with that person's face on? It's so obvious that this fake letter was fake, and even a basic Google search will confirm that. But the fact that Riley was cropping the stamps means that he knew that, and is so stupid that he thought he could get away with presenting this as a real letter that was sent to Einstein. Riley, this is actually one of the stupidest things you've ever done. You're not only stupid, but you are a liar and stupid.
Anthony, if a triangle has the sides 1, 1, and 1, do you know what the angles of the triangle are?
Which kind of triangle are you on about? Are you on about like a right angle triangle?
The triangle has sides 1, 1, and 1. Do you know what the angles are?
The angles would be... Well, it would be an equilateral triangle, wouldn't it?
Right, so what are the angles? Now I'm going to ask this again. If you have a triangle with sides of 1, 1, and 1, what are the angles?
I'm gonna pull up a triangle calculator.
Let's do this again. Anthony, a triangle has sides 1, 1, and 1. What are the angles? Is somebody recording this? Because this is just priceless.
Well, the one I'm using it's not giving me any when I do it. So either this calculator is wrong or you're wrong.
We have a triangle with sides of 1, 1, and what are the angles?
Yeah, so that's an equilateral triangle, right?
Right, so what are the angles?
Does that work on a right angle triangle?
The sides are 1, 1, and 1. What are the angles?
When is that ever used in astronomical calculations for measuring trig?
And that's all the stupid that I can take for today. But believe me, I'm not finished with Riley. I'm working on a video that will serve as my official nomination for Reds Rhetoric's Dumb Fuck of the Year Award 2019. This is Sleeping Warriors year, guys. 2 second places in a row, it's his time. He has some tough competition though in JM Truth, and make sure to check out Team Skeptic's new video to see why he thinks JM Truth should win. But that's it for today. But before I go, I want to say a massive thank you to all my patrons. Your support allows me time to focus on my channel and do what's important, bringing you great content and fighting the flat earth. I want to say an extra massive thank you to my $200 patrons, Christopher Kane and Jeffrey Sloan. If you'd like to join and become part of the FTFE team, go to patreon.com/FTFE. And thank you. Thank you guys for watching. If you've enjoyed this look at the wacky and worryingly stupid world of Anthony Riley, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you aren't already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss anything from FTFE. If you like the figurine that was in the thumbnail for this video, then you can get your own by emailing the address that I've put in the description of this video. And remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat, 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 Hey, I'm FTFE and welcome back to the channel that dips stupidity in liquid nitrogen and shatters it with a toffee hammer. Today we look at a flat earther who just can't stop being wrong about everything. All of the time. He says the most insanely stupid things and then even doubles down on them, with bets that he then subsequently loses and backs out of paying.
I bet you £1,000 solar eclipses happen every single month. The issue is we never see them because they're normally over the earth, normally over the water. There's the £1,000 Matt Taylor. Put your money where your mouth is or shut up because you don't know what you're talking about.
He spews out the stupid with such alarming regularity that it's actually hard to keep up. He's a proponent of relative density replacing gravity and thinks the moon has a cooling light. He argues with people who actually have a science background and claims that physics teachers don't know anything about physics. He is dumb as fuck and seems to be getting dumber. Yes, he is back. It's the man who thinks we have a solar eclipse every month but somehow still thinks the earth is flat. Get your facepalm protection handy because Sleeping Warrior returns for the 4th time in episode 33 of Flerfs Are Idiots.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Thank you for joining me once again as we delve into the pits of stupid to look at someone so painfully dumb and willfully ignorant that all he's good for is being a source of entertainment. Sleeping Warrior, who is my nomination for Red Rhetoric's annual Dumb Fuck of the Year award, seems to be trying hard to win that award. Let's begin with what he thinks is a checkmate Globers moment.
Okay, this video is dedicated specifically to the troll known as Blargo. It's also dedicated to Fight the Flat Earth.
Oh, that's me! Well, of course. We all know that Sleeping Warrior watches every one of my videos. Hi, Riley!
And for any of the morons that think gravity is the reason why the atmosphere sticks to the Earth.
Oh, so the majority of humanity then? Is that who you mean? So 99.999% of humanity are morons, are they? And we don't think... We know that's the reason.
We all know that gravity is not a force. Even if it was, it doesn't hold the atmosphere onto the Earth. Because it isn't capable of doing it. It's not nearly strong enough.
Citation fucking needed. Because in our model, you know, otherwise known as reality, it is strong enough. And if you did the maths instead of just spouting shite, you'd see that. You're a fucking idiot, Riley.
Remember, gravity is proportionate to the mass. So the smaller the mass, the smaller the force. Gas particles are minuscule. They travel at high velocity. They require a force equal to the mass. We know that the force of gravity as per Cavendish was a 50 millionth of the object's weight, and it was not greater than. So for all of these little gas particles that are all buzzing around the Earth, that all weigh a gnat's dick, then you've got a 50 millionth of a gnat's dick that's working against these atoms that are all bouncing around everywhere.
It doesn't really matter how small the force is, Lily. The fact that there is a gnat's dick of a force there is the important thing. Every molecule of air has that tiny force of gravity acting on it, and with no other forces acting in the opposite direction, the net sum is that they are pulled down towards the centre of the Earth.
It isn't nearly enough. But what I'm going to show you is how ballers cannot scale at all when it comes to the gas pressure and the atmosphere point.
I will bet my left nut that what you're actually going to show us is your lack of understanding of anything in the physical world. Thing is, you've got to say that we ballers can't do this right and can't do that right, and you've got to assume that we are the ones in the wrong. Because if you actually applied yourself and did the maths around anything that you talk about, you'd see that you were wrong. But flat earthers don't do maths because flat earthers are all morons.
Here we have Mick West's wonderful gas calculator. I didn't know this existed until very recently. And you can see that planet G, big G, is gravity. And you can see the temperature. Obviously, as that goes up, they move faster. As it goes down, so like absolute zero is basically like, you can't really get it to absolute zero. Maybe you can, oh no you can't. But basically, temperature is proportionate to how much movement there is. So whatever the temperature is, doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. No, just ignore the physical properties of what we're talking about. It's not like we need to actually know what things are, is it?
Okay, that's coming in at 212 parts per million, tap water. Don't know what that means, it's just a number. It could be unicorn farts, it's just a number.
Point is, I'm going to show you what ballers think is what gravity does. So what we're going to do is we're going to make more of them, and we're going to give them lots of temperature to make them move fast, and the planet gravitation is as high as it can go. And as you can see, lots of gas pressure buzzing around the planet, and everybody thinks it's lovely, and that's how they explain it, right?
Yeah, you're right, that is how we explain it. Gravity causes the atmospheric pressure. So how are you going to screw this up?
This isn't a vacuum when there's that much gas floating around. Let's turn the particle count right down. This is more like the vacuum of space. And we know gravity's not a force. So what we'll do, we'll turn gravity off, because you can't have any gravity. And that's really what's really happening with our atmosphere on your model.
Wait, what? If you turn off gravity, you think that's what's happening to our atmosphere? You can't just switch off gravity. That isn't our model at all. What's your logic here, clucking warrior?
So let's just put it more in their favour. Let's go with this particles count. We'll turn this up a little bit to give them half a chance. Turn the temperature up as well, even though it's not space, but it's freezing in space, right? These particles are not moving in space, but anyway. So with no gravity, basically there is no atmosphere.
Yeah, with no gravity, there is no atmosphere. Well done, Riley. You've just proven our model for us. Thanks for that.
Basically, there is no atmosphere. You do get particles colliding with the Earth periodically, every now and again. But there is no atmosphere, right? But the ballers think they've got this effect going on. This is what they think's going on. They think they've got all of these. Let's turn the volume up, the temperature up a bit. They think they've got this magical force of attraction of like there's something that's so big, the mass of the Earth relative to the density of the amount of molecules and the atomic mass of all the molecules in the air. And the Earth's gravitational pull can pull all these things in.
Yes, again, thank you. The mass of the Earth is, well, massive, meaning it's got a large gravitational pull. The force of gravity is proportional to the mass of the Earth. I'm confused. You're actually proving our points for us here.
Problem is though, when you flick the gravity off, because we know that gravity is not a force, watch what happens. Where the fuck's the atmosphere going?
Ha! If I turn off the gravity, then there's no atmosphere. Checkmate, Globers. I win. Fuck me, Sleepy Warrior. How stupid are you? And gravity is a force. It's measured as a force, acts like a force, and within Newtonian physics is a force. Just because we know it's an emergent property of the curvature of space-time rather than a physical force, doesn't mean it isn't real. Try getting in a centrifuge and tell me that fictitious forces aren't real.
Going out in all directions, isn't it? Pascal's law applies. Pascal's law applies not just to fluids at Blago, it applies to gases too. The gases disperse in all directions. And that's what happens in the Earth if it were really in a vacuum of space.
Except, as you've pointed out, we have the effect of gravity. So all those particles are being pulled towards the Earth. So they won't just disperse into space.
You wouldn't have a gas pressure stuck to the outside of the ball because it fucks off into space. You haven't got gravity pulling it back because it's not a force. even if it was a force, it's not nearly strong enough.
Just for once, do you think that you could back that up with some sort of maths? So what am I talking about? You don't think maths is real, do you?
So for all you morons that think that you don't need to have an explanation for this because you don't need to have a container or whatever, a density gradient proves that it doesn't blah blah this and blah blah that. You can't have the density gradient unless you've got some kind of containment, because it fucks off into space. This is what it does with no gravity, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Without gravity, the atmosphere would fuck off into space. But the mere fact we have a pressure gradient shows two things. One, there isn't a physical container like a dome or anything, as the definition of gas pressure mentions having a uniform density. And two, there is some kind of force acting on the atmosphere. Otherwise, that gradient does not exist.
Even if you did have gravity, it would be like the minus, like, let's see if we can get this into like number 1. No, you can't even have 1. It's such a small amount. There is no gravity. Even if there was, it is not strong enough. Not only is it not strong enough, the only way that you can have a gas pressure in a vacuum is if you have a container of some kind.
My god, you're a fucking dipshit. Well, answer me this, dumbass warrior. We know we have a pressure gradient, right? Which means our atmosphere goes from 14.7 psi at sea level to 0.001 psi of outer space. We don't need a barrier between 14.7 and 14.69 psi. So why do we need a barrier between 0.002 and 0.001 psi? We don't because of one thing. You know what it is. You've mentioned it several times, Anthony. I know what it is. Should we ask Desert File what it is?
Gravity, you fucking retard! Gravity! Have you ever heard of fucking gravity? Gravity! Gravity!
If you have a container, then it's dead easy because all of it's contained. The way we see it, you get your density gradient from the fact that it's dynamic, it's mixed up by the sun, the hydrogen cycle, the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, everything's all being mixed up by the sun and all of those creation of gases, all at surface level. That's where the density gradient comes from, and it's so obvious and intuitive that we live on under or in some kind of containment, and call it dome or whatever, who cares?
It's all mixed up by the sun. Well, if we look at your density tower, where you said the sun was lighter than the air and everything else, that would be like using a ping pong ball to mix up an Olympic swimming pool. You fuck nugget.
This is what Ballers think's happening. No, that's not a vacuum when there's pressure like that, is it? So really, we need to turn the particles right down, because that's how many particles there really are in a vacuum. Basically, bugger all. There you go. And let's remove the gravity. Oh. Where's the atmosphere gone? It's fucked off into space, isn't it? So Blago, fight the flat earth. All of you stupid morons that think that you can have gas pressure, even with gravity, you can't. Gravity's not a force, it's an effect. It can't cause anything.
Yep, turn off gravity and take away the gas particles and there is no atmosphere. Fucking genius.
Does it make a displacement? Does it force a displacement? If it forces a displacement, according to Newton, there is force. This is just normal table salt from your favourite supermarket. Other supermarkets are available. We can tell that the density of the egg is equal to the part in the glass where the liquid is. What I'm now going to try and prove is that if I change the density of the medium, I will cause the effect by adding salt. So if I can change it, because I'm the experimenter, and I'm manipulating my presumed cause, my independent variable is the medium, that egg moves, I've caused it. We know the parts per million is about 300. All we need to do is pour some of this in. Hey, what do you know? The eggs immediately moved. Didn't have to wait for that, did we? So, what's the explanation? Well, I'm going to measure this now. This isn't going to be much more above 300. However, if it reads anything above 300, then that'll do for me. How do we set? So the density is reading around about 309, 308, 309. You can have a look at that on the camera if you want to zoom in. But I've just made the egg move. So what's the cause? Well, the scientific method states that the independent variable is the presumed cause, and I presumed that change in the density of the liquid with salt would cause displacement. Newton's first law of motion states that every object will remain at rest unless acted upon by a force, and I've obviously created a force. The density of the medium has displaced the egg. The egg moved. That's an accelerating mass. So therefore, Newton states that there is a force. I caused it with this. So in scientific method, the cause of the displacement is this. I've caused it. I've manipulated it. I added the salt. It caused something. I did it. I'm within scientific method.
Next up, a quick look at Riley looking at my channel again. I know you watch everything I do, Anthony. In this clip, old Dum Dum is listening to me debate Harold, hashtag stop censoring Harold, and we come to the question of whether time can be an independent variable. Let's listen to what happens.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Is time an independent or dependent variable?
Time.
Is time a dependent or an independent variable? We know that time, whatever time may or may not be, is not perceptible by touch. We can't manipulate it, and by definition, you've got to manipulate it. Time is something. There is a factor involved with time, and I'm going to say that it's a variable that's not changed during an experiment. Now, what Howard then does is he starts to think about what is the effect of it. So let's hear how he addresses the question.
This is a good one. Well done, team.
An independence or a dependent variable?
Because you said gravity is never manipulated. It can't be.
Please show the cameras
I'm
so he
asking
can
you.
see my reaction to his answer.
2 secs, putting it on.
Pretty simple question if you are well versed in
It is
the
a simple
scientific
question,
method like
but
you
it's
appear to be. Or you proclaim to be,
it's something
I
I've
guess.
never really thought. It's more for philosophy, isn't it? Time.
No.
I mean, you can't manipulate
No.
time.
Wrong.
So I would say that.
Right, let me explain why you're wrong there, Howard. Howard, right, listen, okay? So I have got 5 cups of tea, right? And I want to do an experiment to find out what the perfect amount of brewing is for me. The only thing that I do different is I leave tea bags in each cup for a different amount of time. What have I done? I've manipulated the time in the experiment.
No, doofus. You haven't manipulated the time in the experiment. You've manipulated
Different
the
amount of
passage
time. What have I done? Sweet bejeebers, that was fucking stupid. So according to Anthony, time can't be an independent variable, but the passage of time can be. Because apparently they're different things? No. Just no. Okay, everyone watching this, pause the video and go to Google and type in, is time an independent variable? Done? Good. Well, what you've probably found is this page that says very clearly, time is an independent variable, and then every link you check will say the same thing. Sleeping Warrior is so dishonest and stupid that he will even show a citation, and it will say that time is an independent variable, but still say it isn't. Fuck me.
5 divided by 0 is 5. In the real world.
Guys, listen, let me... Wait, Riley, hang on. Riley, hang on. I have to address Ali real fast. Ali, if you have 5 apples and you do nothing to them, you're not applying an operator to them.
Right, but so if you have 5 apples and you try multiplying or dividing by absolutely nothing with them in the real world, you've still got your 5 apples. However, in contrast, in mathematics, the minute you press that function button, be it divide or multiply, you then lose your apples, and then you ask it to do nothing, and then you get an error. But in real world, you haven't lost your apples or got an error. But in mathematics, you have. That's not the same.
But that's not the question that division is answering. When you divide by your logic, when you divide 4 apples into 2, you still have 4 apples, right?
No.
In the real world, if you have 4 apples and divide them into 2 groups, you still have 4 apples. Therefore, the answer is 4. No, that's not how it works. You're supposed to answer how many apples are in each group. Now, if you take 5 apples and divide them into 0 groups, how many apples are in each group?
So when you said before, if you had 4 apples and divide by 2, you've still got your 4 apples. You haven't, because if you've divided by 2, I've got the other 2 apples. You don't have them anymore.
Exactly. There are 2 groups of 2 apples for 4 total, Anthony.
Yeah, but you don't have 4 anymore because I've got 2.
Guys.
The sum total of apples is still 4.
Guys.
No, you've got 2. I've got 2. That's the function.
Yes, then that is a total of how many apples, Anthony?
I had a simple point I was making, fellas.
So you have 5 apples and divide it into 0 people. How many do no people have, right? How many does each person in that group of 0 have?
The key word is you. If you divide by 0 apples, you've still got your 5 apples.
What is Big? I think Big Blue's trying to get something across here.
Yeah, well, I was making a simple point. If 5 divided by 0 mathematically is a puzzle to you, Anthony, how do you plan on understanding tensor calculus? Because that's Einstein.
I'm not planning on understanding tensor calculus. Why is that a red herring?
It's not a red herring. You're trying to disprove somebody using their own math, but you don't understand 5 divided by 0.
Yeah, listen,
that's my
if you divide anything and then you divide by nothing, you've still got your 5.
5 divided by 0 is 5? What the... If anyone needs a remedial classroom, Riley, it's you. Right, you bunch of idiots. Today, we're going to do some basic maths. What's that noise? Mr. Riley, what are you doing? And you couldn't hold it. So you thought no one would notice. Yeah, well, we did notice. Please go to the bathroom to do that. So some of you morons don't know how to divide 5 by 0. In mathematics, division by 0 is division where the divisor is 0. Such a division can be formally expressed as where a is the dividend. In ordinary arithmetic, the expression has no meaning, as there is no number which, when multiplied by 0, gives a, and so division by 0 is undefined. So 5 and any number divided by 0 is undefined. Your homework is to try and survive the night without accidentally stabbing yourself in the eye or something. And if you don't think all that stupid was enough, then get a load of this. During a recent live stream, Leaky Warrior was obviously bursting and got caught short. He couldn't hold in his pee, so relieved himself live on stream. Just have a listen.
I just said for curiosity's sake. I want to know what we've been contravening.
I agree, you're right. I don't agree. I don't think that you've done any wrong there by asking what law.
I could, and they started to get irritated. So that's
the thing is, the thing is though, the cop doesn't have to show you the code. He just brings you before the judge, and the judge has to show you the code.
Correct, but that's not what happened, though, is it?
Well, no, but the point is, so asking the officer for the code is irrelevant.
He tries to hide it so well, but just have a look at the face he makes. You can't hide that involuntary twitch, Leaky. This is one of the dumbest things he's ever done, mainly because he thought that nobody would notice. Riley, you're dumb as fuck.
Right, like density tower, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll take the cherry tomato that's in the middle, just because it's in the middle and it's a solid. Now, what we can do is we can use any of these layers, liquid layers, and we can give them a value, right? We can call them numbers. We can call them anything that denotes like a rank. So you can call it, say, 6, and then not put units to it. Or you can put units to it, and we can call it unicorns. But we know that it's sat in a relative position, relative to the mediums that are around it. Let's give the cherry tomato, say, 5, and the medium above it is 4, and the medium below it is 6. We know that cherry tomato finds its equilibrium at the state 5 that we've called 5.
Why?
We know that if we take the cherry tomato out and put it back in again, it's going to go back to the same place. It's not going to be in 6 or 4. Sorry, it's not going to go 6 or 4. It's going to go back to 5. Agreed?
Anthony, that's a gradient of pressure.
No, it's a density gradient, Craig.
Yeah, what's it caused by?
The density itself, all the relative densities relative to themselves. Pardon?
What's density?
The amount of matter in an object.
It's density of force.
It clearly is a force. You're literally looking at it. You're literally looking at it right now, Craig.
And that's all the stupid that I can take for today. But before I go, I want to say a massive thank you to all my patrons. It's thanks to the support and generosity of you guys that I'm able to do this full time, bring you great content, and continue to fight the stupid. Patrons get to vote on what each episode of my series Stupid Humans will be about, early access to some videos, and the chance to come on some live streams. Your support is amazing. To join, go to patreon.com/FTFE. And thank you. If you've enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, subscribe if you aren't already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss anything from FTFE. If you want to get one of my Sleeping Warrior for Dumb Fuck of the Year shirts, then the link is in the description. Remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat, 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 the Craig. Hey, I'm FTFE and welcome back to the channel that dips stupidity in pig's blood and throws it to a pack of hungry wolves. Today we're talking about a flat earther who defies the very laws of probability by never ever getting anything right. It's like some crazy superpower of his. The ability to be wrong all of the fucking time. In fact, it's quite impressive. I couldn't be as wrong as him if I tried. Everything he says is wrong. I am of course talking about Leaky Warrior, aka Anthony Riley himself. It's almost time for the voting for Red's Rhetoric's Dumb Fuck of the Year, and if you aren't convinced by now that he should be this year's winner, then this video should show you all you need. Just as a little teaser, Sleeping Warrior once said that the Earth is round during the day, but flat at night. Yeah, see what I mean? Strap on some facepalm protection and remove all sharp objects from your immediate surroundings. It's the 5th time Sleeping Warrior has been the subject of Flerfs are idiots.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Thank you for joining me once again for a look at what happens when you feed your child lead paint straight from the can instead of baby formula. Sleeping Warrior is just mind-blowingly stupid. The amount of dumb shit he says has surpassed all known methods of measuring stupidity, and I'm pretty sure is the actual reason that aliens won't talk to us. Sleeping Warrior, aka Riley, aka Clucking Warrior, aka Leaky Warrior, aka Half Asleep Dumbass, aka Mr. 5 divided by 0 is 5, doesn't understand anything. Prime amongst the things that he doesn't understand is gravity, buoyancy and density and the relationship between them. He thinks that the Titanic sinking disproves gravity. Man, that's fucking stupid. Let's find out how stupid.
Boats prove there is no such thing as gravity.
No, they fucking don't, you mental patient. You're going to say it's all relative density, aren't you? Well, if that's the case, as the boat in your lovely diagram is less dense than the water it sits in, why is part of the boat under the water? It's almost like there's some kind of force pulling the boat down a bit, isn't it? Weird that, huh?
Remember, in a scientific experiment, the independent variable is the presumed cause. The dependent variable is the effect. Well, if we were to make a boat that had 1,000 kilograms that displaced water that was less than its 1,000 kilograms, the boat's going to sink. But if it was displacing water that was significantly more than the 1,000 kilograms the boat weighs, the boat is less dense than the medium and it'll float.
You know what? Archimedes figured this shit out over 2,000 years ago. And you keep mentioning weight. You're obviously aware that there is more to it than just density, but what you're missing out is that weight is literally defined as the mass times the acceleration of gravity, F equals mg. Without gravity, there is no weight. You're a fucking idiot, Ding.
What if we got a boat that gradually changed its mass? So its 1,000 kilograms gradually became 1,050, 1,100, 1,150, 1,200. If we started to fill water into the boat so that its mass was increasing, and then the displacement of the water around it became, basically, it became the inverse of what it was at the start, we know what's going to happen, don't we? It's going to sink.
Well, that's two different things you've just said. Filling the boat with water will change its mass, but more importantly, its density. And if we look at the formula for buoyancy, if you increase the density, you decrease the buoyant force that acts in the opposite direction to gravity, meaning gravity wins and the boat sinks. Now, if we just make the boat bigger but maintained its density, it would still float. I think you're getting confused between mass, weight, density and buoyancy. But that's not surprising. You need a triangle calculator to figure out the internal angles of an equilateral triangle, and you still couldn't do it.
Well, the one I'm using it's not giving me any when I do it. So either this calculator is wrong or you're wrong.
The Titanic demonstrates that as the mass of the boat increases relative to the medium it's in, it'll sink.
I'm surprised you're not jumping up and down in excitement about the fact that the density is also increasing. Because that's actually more important here, because imagine if you get another Titanic and just weld it to the side of the first Titanic. You've increased its mass there, but it wouldn't sink. The density would still be less than the surrounding water, which means the buoyant force would still win in the struggle with gravity. I know you won't understand any of this because you think density, which is a scalar and has no vector, is a force. And that's really fucking stupid.
We all know the story, it hit an iceberg and it took on water, and the more water it takes on, it's increasing its mass. It's not displacing as much water anymore, because the water's now filling the beaker, the bottle, the container. And obviously, we know that as you fill the container with more and more water, it loses its buoyancy. I say that word reluctantly because buoyancy has got little g in its maths.
Yes, you're right, it does have little g in its maths. Just like weight does as well. And it doesn't matter if you said it reluctantly, you still said it. And what does that little g stand for? Desert file?
Gravity, you fucking retard! Gravity! Have you ever heard of fucking gravity? Gravity! Gravity!
But really, it's not that it's losing its buoyancy, it's just gaining density relative to the medium it's in. It's becoming more heavy.
Density isn't a force. We all know that. So that's not going to move it, is it? Density is part of the buoyancy equation. And it's getting more heavy, you say. So it's gaining weight. You do realise you're proving gravity here, right? No, of course you don't, because you're a fucking idiot, Ding.
And obviously, as the Titanic starts to sink, it's taking on more and more water. It's demonstrating that a gradual increase in its density is going to, at some point, it's going to send the boat under, which is, of course, what it does.
Yep, you're right. It's almost like there is, I don't know, some kind of force pulling it down, and the force that was keeping it on the surface has decreased. A force. What could that force be, I wonder?
Gravity, you fucking retard! Gravity! Have you ever heard of fucking gravity? Gravity! Gravity!
Remember, in a scientific experiment, the presumed cause has to be manipulated to prove that it is the cause of the effect. Well, if the captain manipulates the density of the water by putting a big hole in the side of it and then water starts coming in, and the boat then sinks, the cause of the boat sinking was the increase of the mass, because he's added mass to his boat relative to the medium it's in.
Are you saying that the Titanic sinking is a scientific experiment? Are you really saying that? My God, no wonder you go on about density. You're dense as fuck. How do you not collapse into a black hole? And here is the problem with your basic way of thinking. It's the same with your egg experiment.
This is an egg.
Yes, thank you. We know that's an egg. You say that there is only one cause and we can't presume anything else. Well, that's a really stupid way of thinking about the physical world, because it doesn't actually look at what the actual cause could be. If I press the light switch, is that the cause of my light coming on? Or does that light switch activate a circuit allowing current to flow and heat the filament in the light bulb? That current itself being generated by an offshore wind farm which is powered by changes in pressure and temperature in the atmosphere, causing wind, which itself is a result of the sun's energy hitting the Earth along with the Earth's rotation. Why do you stop at the most basic of observations? I know why. You have to fit your narrative. Also, you're a window-licking moron.
Unexpectedly, the captain of the Titanic proves that the cause of boats sinking is relative density, because he adds more mass. That changes its density because mass per volume. It changes it, more mass, same volume, and then it gives way.
Yes, but why? What does changing the density do, Leaky Warrior? It reduces the buoyant force. Stop being so basic. Actually, don't. You're doing a great job of showing why you should be dumb fuck of the year this year.
In autumn of 2016, I witnessed my first rising of the harvest moon. I've never seen a harvest moon before, not because I've never looked for it, but I've never had any reason to look for it. But in 2016, I was into the flat Earth discussion. I was quite challenging stuff, and I realised that the harvest moon is different than heliocentricity explains. The moon's supposed to be 240,000 miles away, give or take, apparently. But if you actually witness a harvest moon rising, you will observe a vast difference in size to what the moon normally looks like. Now, we've all seen the moon. The moon is, generally speaking, for me at least, it's around the size of a 5p piece. Now, for the Americans out there that are not that sure what a 5p piece is in terms of money, this is the 5p piece here. It's a small coin. I saw the harvest moon, and it was more like a £2 coin. The £2 coin is obviously significantly bigger. How much bigger becomes a bit of an issue, because when I make the statement, it appears to be 8 to 10 times bigger than normal, I actually mean it's about 8 to 10 times bigger. It might be 6.7, it might be 10.2, but in any event, it's significantly bigger. Gravity is an essential intrinsic part of the heliocentric model. And of course, I don't accept that gravity even exists.
Well, that's because you are a... You know what? I need an expert for this.
Anthony Riley, you are a fucking idiot. Hey, Fight. You know JM Truth is still gonna win Dumb Fuck of the Year, right? Let me give you guys a few reasons why. First, hey, wait, stop that censorship.
My position is that density and buoyancy explain everything that we see and observe day to day. There is no requirement or further explanation required other than density or buoyancy, and of course none can be contrasted or distinguished from density or buoyancy.
Except, you fuck nugget, as you accept you can't use buoyancy because that requires using gravity, because the buoyant force is created by pulling down the more heavy and dense water around the less dense object, creating a force in the opposite direction to the local gravitational vector.
I'm trying to prove this fiction that is called gravity. But in the Scientific American, you can find this by searching for the phrase here highlighted in blue. You can find it yourself by George Musa on November the 1st, 2015. quick synopsis of what this article's about. Physics now suggests at the most fundamental level that the universe is non-local. There is no such thing as place or distance. Newton's concept of gravity seemed to imply the phenomena of non-locality because of the attractive forces between masses appeared to act magically across expanses, and Einstein's general relativity instead ascribed gravity to the curvature of space-time. I'm going to read that again. Albert Einstein's general relativity instead ascribed gravity to the curvature of space-time. This is the current understanding of gravity. Whether it's right or wrong isn't the point of this video. This is the current accepted version of gravity.
Yep, and that's what we've been trying to get you to understand. Newton never had a theory of gravity. He simply developed a mathematical law around a very basic observation. There appears to be a force acting on everything, causing a downward acceleration of 9.8 meters per second squared. Einstein developed general relativity that says it wasn't actually a force causing this downward acceleration. It was the effect of mass warping space-time in such a way that causes things to fall into it. Either way you describe it, it is the same thing as far as we need to be worried about, because that force is still felt.
This is important because for those that believe that Cavendish proved somewhat with balls in a shed observed through a telescope, through a peephole, whatever he thinks he did or didn't prove, for any ball earther to cite this as the science to prove gravity is proving whatever he thinks he's proving, but it's antiquated, out of date. It's not the current science. The current science states clearly that Einstein's general relativity is the curvature of space-time, and this is the current science.
Yes, we understand that, but you don't, do you? Because Cavendish still witnessed an attractive force. Just because you don't understand Einsteinian concepts doesn't magically make that go away. I suppose you could say what Cavendish witnessed was the large masses warping space-time enough to make the smaller weights on the end of the torsion bar fall towards them. He still witnessed that happening, however you explain it.
So Cavendish is out the window. So unfortunately, Sly, Einstein created his general theory of relativity, which provides our modern understanding of gravity, with the express purpose of expunging non-locality from physics. Newton's gravity acted at a distance, as if by magic, and the general relativity snapped the wand in two by showing that the curvature of space-time, and not an invisible force, gives rise to our gravitational attraction.
Amazing! You just read something perfectly, without understanding a single word.
Now again, my position is not that this is true. My position is simply that this is showing that Newton's theory of gravitational attraction is no longer this magic force that seems to exist, that they want to believe exists. It's actually, apparently, according to Einstein, the curvature of space-time. And again, this is not my position.
Well, it's my position. You're not much more than a talking monkey.
But this is what the current science says. And the rest of this article can be ignored. You can read it yourself.
I read it all, and you really shouldn't ignore it. In fact, if you remember, I interviewed the guy who wrote it, George Musser. Let's see what he said.
The kind of message, overall message of that article was to look at kind of a progression of scientific ideas. So Newton developed his law of gravity really based on Kepler's laws, and brought his observations of Mars and the planets in our own solar system and their orbits and positions. Newton developed this law of gravity that we're all taught. But even Newton and his contemporaries had a real problem with that law, namely that it didn't seem to, it described gravity's effects, but it really described how gravity works. And Newton actually in his own life tried to develop, unsuccessfully as it turns out, an understanding of how gravity works. What is actually communicating the influence, for instance, between the Earth and the Moon, or between the Sun and Mars, etc. And it really fell to Einstein. Einstein's role here was to really fill in that mechanism. He explained how is it that objects, massive objects, exert what seems to be a force on one another.
Passage of time is a perfect example of that.
Or manipulated by the researcher.
No, varied or manipulated by the researcher. It is or, not the word and. An independent variable is a variable that stands alone and isn't changed by any other variables that you are trying to measure. It doesn't matter what you're casting that shadow, dude. It's the fact that it's cast in shadow to begin with. That is the only thing we fucking care about.
You've got to cause it by manipulating it. And if you don't agree with the phraseology of this one, let's see whether overall, the overall story from all of the citations...
So you're literally saying that a shadow cast by a person is different than a shadow cast by a tree or a building.
I'm saying that you've got to cast... I'm saying that when you put the red spot on the dot on the wall and you claimed the 4 degrees, and I said, yeah, but there's not really a control there to prove that, is there, right? You claim that as a...
I'm literally asking you.
Come on, Reds, don't interrupt.
Shadow. I'm literally asking you the shadow equals shadow here. But apparently the shadows are different according to you. How? Please explain that to me.
I'm trying to, but you keep interrupting.
Oh.
Well, if you claimed that the laser pen caused a 4-degree increase in the temperature, I want to see the same thing being done to cast the shadow by proving that when you cast the shadow by causing a summit, whatever, that it goes up. Because, or down in your case, because you said that the direct moonlight was warmer than the shade. Well, I want you to demonstrate that by proving, by causing a shadow yourself, and then demonstrating it with your thing. And that's the same standard, but in reverse.
Well, keep in mind, Anthony, that 2 degree difference I picked up with the shade side being colder was over a 2-hour period. It's not going to be something you're going to spot instantly.
But that's not what you said before. Get that video back up. Let's see what you did.
It absolutely is. The moon has been shining on the west side of the building for 2 hours when I took that video. During the entire night, it never once shone on the north side of the building. And there was only a 2 degree difference, with the moon side being warmer.
Sean, can you please present the video with the laser pen that you demonstrated before, please?
Which has nothing to do with the moonlight one.
It does, because you're demonstrating a direct cause and effect relationship, right? I want to see that, and I want to see what happens with your camera when you put the laser on.
You see an immediate temperature increase in one specific spot.
So you manipulated that by putting the laser on it. So what I want you to do in reverse, to support your claim that the direct moonlight is actually warmer than the shade, I want you to cast a shadow and show what happens when you've cast the shadow, and see and support it with your probe, because that will show the effect that you claim is there.
And again, the shaded side of the building that had no moonlight at all for 2 hours.
I don't care, that's correlative, Sean.
But you're asking for shade. I'm giving you shade for 2 hours.
No, I'm asking you for shade that you manipulate yourself.
It's still shade.
It's not shade you've manipulated yourself.
It's still shade, though. And you wonder
but
why
it's correlative.
Stop running for dumb fuck of the year, because you're making
So just answer me this, Riley. Just answer me this. No matter how correlative it is, why is the moonlight side of the building warmer than the shaded side when the claim is moonlight makes things cold?
Who cares? It's outside of scientific.
Now you don't care because it shits on your claim?
No, it's outside of scientific method because you're not manipulating it yourself.
It isn't.
Holding up an egg, add some salt, then mix and wait for density to be proven as a force. Spelling's not his strength, nor grammar, facts, and logic either. He goes by sleeping warrior on the tubes. We hear him lie like Eric Dubé. He's typing blind assertions on assertions. Where's his mind? He left it in Wigan. It's his time. We still believe that it's his year. Reds has a big reward for the lies of Riley. The lies of Riley. The lies of Riley. Five over naught is 5. He needs a triangle calculator. Eclipses every month go over the sea. We hear him lie like Eric Dubé. He's typing blind assertions on assertions. Where's his mind? He left it in Wigan. It's his time. We still believe that Earth's not flat, but he spends a lot of time in mental flatline. He'll turn off gravity anytime and have a stream twice at one time. We hear him lie like Eric Dubé. He's typing blind assertions on assertions. Where's his mind? He left it in Wigan. It's his time. We still believe that it's his year. Reds has a big reward for the lies of Riley. Well, that's all the stupid that I can deal with for today. But just before I go, I want to say a massive thank you to all my patrons. It's thanks to the support and generosity of you guys that I'm able to do this full time, bring you great content and continue to fight the stupid. Patrons get to vote on what each episode of my series Stupid Humans will be about, early access to some videos and the chance to come on some live streams. Your support is amazing. To join, go to patreon.com/FTFE. And thank you. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, then please leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss anything from FTFE. And remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat, 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 the cray. Hey, I'm FTFE and welcome back to the channel that removes all the carbon monoxide detectors from Stupidity's poorly built studio apartment. Seriously, I can't keep up with the stupid that Riley pumps out. Every time I've finished writing a script, I check his channel and he's released at least 3 new steaming nuggets of stupid onto the doorstep of the internet. So you guys get another Sleeping Warrior video. Yay. I guess. But I can't do it alone. It's not good for my mental health to keep listening to all the stupid Leaky Warrior puts out. So I decided to get some help from a stick man.
Hello everyone.
Yes, Professor Stick will be helping me out as we give Riley his 6th time being the subject of stupid in episode 35 of Flerfs Are Idiots.
We're living on a disc, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Thank you for joining me once again for a look at what happens when children are dropped on their head repeatedly. Before we get going, in case you've been living under a rock and didn't know, Sleeping Warrior is my nomination for Red Rhetoric's annual Dumb Fuck of the Year award. To cast your vote and get Riley the win he finally deserves, hit this link and either like or dislike the video it takes you to, and on January the 6th, 2020, come to the announcements on Red Rhetoric's channel. Of course, Clocking Warrior got wind of his nomination and tried to derail the enthusiasm for him taking the top spot by releasing an application video. But in typical #classic Riley fashion, he failed hard and made one of the funniest videos I've ever seen. That might sound good, but remember, we're laughing at him and not with him.
It's been brought to my attention recently that there is an award going around on a religious fanatics YouTube channel, awarding people for what they describe as a Dumb Fuck of the Year award. Apparently, I've been nominated.
Right off the bat with classic Lily dishonesty, because you've known about this for at least 4 years, ever since your first nomination where you came 10th. The next 2 years you came 2nd, but this year you've got it in the bag. Please carry on. Every word out of your dumb mouth makes it more likely that you're going to win.
Apparently, I've been nominated, and I found this reference on my channel recently regarding my current status. So what I thought I would do would be announce my official running for this so-called Dumb Fuck of the Year award.
Man, you're stupid as hell. You get everything wrong. You don't apply for Dumb Fuck of the Year. You get nominated. You were mine, Sean Hufford's, and Dead Kennedy in Space's official nomination. Check out the link in the description for the full nomination show.
And I would describe my attributes for why I should have this wonderful accolade. One to go on the old CV.
Yeah, right next to failed lawyer and failed mini cab owner.
So please consider this video to be my attempt, my application, my desire to be awarded this highly prestigious accolade. Oh shit. I got a minute.
You've got the fucking Union flag upside fucking down, you dense motherfucker. You can't get anything right.
Okay. So, when I went to university, I learnt numerous things in my degree.
I dispute that, but please go on.
I learnt the law of evidence, and I learnt that thou shall not accept shitty evidence. I also learnt that thou shall question shitty evidence. I read lots of law books on evidence, and I learnt which evidence is considered to be better than other evidence that is not considered to be good. And in the end, I completed my degree.
You finished your law degree, but can't figure out the word you mean is thou, not thy. Also, you're not, nor have you ever been, in the military, so stop saluting, you look like a pleb. Also, no one in the UK salutes like that. That's American saluting.
Eventually, I ended up completing or furthering my education, where I went to a second university where I learned more about evidence. And I learned things like employment law, intellectual property, personal injury. I learned things like criminal law. I also learned more about evidence. I did employment law, I did family law, I did commercial law, I did real estate law. And in the end, I completed my legal practice course.
And none of that relates to science in any way, and doesn't help argue with people that are much more knowledgeable about science than you, and it definitely does not help you decide what is and isn't good evidence for the shape of the Earth, when you don't understand the science on which that evidence is based.
Some years after my degree, I learned that I should not abuse the word science in this topic. I learned that I shall adhere to scientific method in this topic.
The scientific method, sleeping dumb fuck. The scientific method, not just scientific method. You can't even get basic language right. And trust me, you abuse the word science worse than Nathan Oakley abuses his kid.
I learned that I shall not accept any old shit as evidence, and that I should not preach any religion without satisfactory evidence to prove my shite to be true.
You want to prove your shite to be true? Why would you want to do that? Right, let's start with your attempts at science. Prove any of that makes any sense at all. Because you won't, and you have never been able to.
Being nominated for this award by religious fundamentalist zealots is not an insult. It emphasises the level of brainwashing and dumb fuckery of this heliocentric religion.
Yeah, we aren't religious. Flat Earth is more like a religion, even more like a cult. And Red's rhetoric is the one who created the Dumb Fuck of the Year award. And he says that he sexually identifies as an attack helicopter. That doesn't sound very religious to me.
The state religion for the UK is not Christian or Catholic or Muslim. It's heliocentrism. It's heliocentric. That is a religion. And these morons that are all worshipping whatever god that they consider to be God is no different to the heliocentric narrative, preaching this bullshit nonsense to people that otherwise don't know any better.
That's what we have education for, so people that want to can know better. You not understanding something doesn't mean it isn't true, and you being a bona fide fucking idiot ding does not make people that understand science religious.
I realise that I should not preach any religion without satisfactory evidence to prove that my shite is true. So this Dumb Fuck of the Year award that is being presented or suggested or nominated is nothing more than propaganda to influence people that otherwise can't think for themselves. And if these people that are otherwise religious and fanatic and zealotry people think that this is some kind of award, then vote for me. I represent everything that you people can't stand, and I'm proud that I can think critically, I can use my own brain, and I can realise that there is no evidence for curvature.
No evidence for curvature? Are you sure? Well, what's this then? Or this? Or this?
There is no evidence for axial rotation.
Bob?
If the Earth is spinning at one rotation every 24 hours, that means that every hour it has to turn 15 degrees. And if the gyroscope is mounted anywhere on Earth, it's going to drift. In today's 21st century navigation systems, they're using what's called a ring laser gyroscope. It is extremely precise. If we could simply get one of these ring laser gyroscopes, we would be able to prove once and for all that there is no rotation to the Earth. One of the people in the community actually purchased one for $20,000. But what we found is when we turned on that gyroscope, we found that we were picking up a drift, a 15 degree per hour drift.
There is no evidence for gravity.
Well, I'd agree with you, but then we'd both be wrong.
First, we weigh a small lead pyramid to measure the force of attraction between it and the Earth. Its weight is 152.166 grams. Now we move the heavy lead ball under the scale, adding its mass to the mass of the Earth. The weight has increased by 1/1000th of a gram, which represents the attraction between the pyramid and the ball.
There is no evidence for the radius of the Earth in the third dimension.
You should really search up P and S waves.
And there is no evidence for a gas pressure existing next to a vacuum without some kind of container or membrane.
Again, that's just plainly false. Nuclear fusion kind of does exactly that, as in current fusion chambers, which are a vacuum of around 10 to the -11 torr, and have a ball of ionized gas which has a pressure in the middle of that vacuum without a physical container. Just some clever electrical and magnetic forces keeping that gas pressure contained in a vacuum without a physical barrier.
And I realise that ultimately the astrologies and the zoologies and the Timbuktuologies don't even have the ability to comply with scientific method.
The scientific method, you basket case. The scientific method.
Yeah, you morons all think that this is considered to be science. Well, I got news for you guys. It isn't. And if you think you guys can vote for me because that makes me a dumb fuck, then do it.
And we will, because you really are the dumb fuckiest of dumb fucks. You can't even mock us correctly. You fail at everything.
So let's try another one. We have the Macmillan British Dictionary says mass, and then it says in plural masses, which again is my position. This is supporting my assertion that mass is the singular molecule. It's not the collective, it's the singular. Masses, plural, a lot of. Well, we know that there's a lot of particles there, isn't it? There's got to be plurality there. There can't be singularity, can there? Even if it's inside a box, which would be our position. So, again, let's go back to the next one. Columbia doesn't say anything there. It's to do with religion. Oxford, oddly, doesn't say anything there. Cambridge Dictionary, it says a larger amount of something that has no particular shape or arrangement. It doesn't say some things, plural. It says something. So that something would be one of these. It wouldn't be all of these, because that would be some things, plural. Okay? So I've gone through there. There's 4 there, 5, 6, 7 there, 8, and then there's a base. That's 9. 9 things there that indicate that mass is singular. Masses would be plural. This is devastating if you believe that atmospheric pressure is the explanation on their model, because even if you've got gravity, and you haven't really got gravity, have you? It's not bendy space-time, but even if you've got gravity, that ticks that bit there. But you need the mass bit, and you haven't got the mass, because it doesn't say masses, it says mass. So if you haven't got mass, and you haven't really got gravity either, then you've definitely not got atmospheric pressure, because you need atmospheric pressure satisfying the definition. Satisfying atmospheric pressure is weight over unit area. Well, you haven't got weight, so therefore you haven't got atmospheric pressure. And that's before you even get to unit area. If you look up what area is, it doesn't even apply to this, because area is defined. There is no definition to an infinite vacuum of space, is there? And that's what they tell us that we're living in, an infinite vacuum of space. So atmospheric pressure is equal to weight over unit area. Unit area isn't a unit area when it's infinite, and weight doesn't have any mass to it, even if we give you gravity. Atmospheric pressure seems to be nothing more than a calculative correction to their model for them realizing that they don't have gas pressure.
And now it's time to pass you over to the smartest two-dimensional stick figure I know, Professor Stick, as Anthony Riley misunderstands atmospheric pressure.
Hello everyone, thanks to Fight the Flat Earth for having me on today. It's truly an honor and I'm happy to be here. As he mentioned already, I think, this is part of a collaboration we're doing, so you can find the next video in the description below. Anyway, in regards to this video, Sleeping Warrior is going to give us a little demonstration on how atmospheric pressure should work. Let's have a look.
Gas pressure simulator. So what we'll try and do, here's the simulator, so you click on it. And we've played with this before, planet, temperature. Right, so first off, you have to knock off the gravity, because we know gravity is in effect. And we know that the temperature varies, but it's really cold in space, but there's a massive differential between the vacuum of space temperature and our temperature. So we can basically turn that up, and basically it's not misrepresenting what happens, because we know what happens. We know the fact is the atmosphere is a lot warmer than it is in space, but that's what happens on their model.
I absolutely love how you just casually took away gravity as if nothing happened, and then you go on a small rant about temperature, which is irrelevant here, in order to distract us from the fact that you just turned off gravity. Excellent. Haven't you been reading comments, watching anti-flat earth videos, or anything along those lines? The answer to your concern about the air particles floating into space and creating zero pressure is gravity. The simulation you are using here is defaulted to what it looks like on the actual Earth, so of course it starts with gravity on.
Not only without gravity being a force, but that's what happens because there's no containment. That's the multiplying by infinity. You are literally seeing what happens with the multiplication of infinity.
Yes, if there were a container, then the molecules wouldn't be floating away. But that's not the only way to contain air molecules. Gravity is another way to do that. Of course, depending on which one you use, the behavior of these air molecules would be different. A container, for example, would make it so the air pressure is even throughout. I assume that on your flat earth model, you propose that the dome acts like a container. Well, if that were the case, then the air pressure at sea level would be the same as that on top of Mount Everest. This is clearly not the case. The top of Mount Everest is about 250 millimeters of mercury, which is a third compared to sea level at 760 millimeters of mercury. That's why the top of Mount Everest is quite dangerous due to this low air pressure. A container with no gravity does not support this because the pressure would be uniform throughout. Gravity, on the other hand, does create a gradient. It's hard to visualize this in the simulation you showed us, so here's another simulation written in Python code that someone by the channel named Taper Science sent to me. As can be seen, when there's gas in the container, it spreads evenly throughout. That's because there's nothing there that causes a bias in terms of air pressure. If you remove the upper wall, then the air molecules flow out. This is what you would expect it to be like if gravity didn't exist. But once gravity is turned on, you can clearly see how many many of the air molecules begin to sink downwards. This causes a pressure increase towards the bottom while reducing the pressure towards the top. And from the histogram on the right side, you can see how there is a clear gradient. The higher you go, the lower the pressure. Notice how the top of the container is still left open. This is what happens on Earth. There's no need for a lid or a container at the top to stop the gas molecules from flying out to space, because gravity exists. This also makes sense with the air pressure difference we see on different altitudes. The higher you go, the lower the air pressure. Hopefully that cleared up some stuff for you, but since you're a flat earther, I doubt you actually understood what just happened.
What the ball earthers argue, well, we don't have gas pressure. We have atmospheric pressure.
I don't know who would use that as a counter-argument.
The fact that they have atmospheric pressure is an admission that gas pressure doesn't work on their model.
Saying that it's atmospheric pressure instead of gas pressure is a pretty bad point, and I don't agree with that argument whatsoever. Anyway, another piece of evidence that gravity is the answer to this question is the composition of air. See, air molecules don't all move at the same speed. Some are faster, some are slower. But it's the average speed that usually matters. Kind of like temperature. There are always molecules that have more energy and some that have less, but what we feel as temperature is the average of it all. Same with air molecule speed. But that doesn't mean there aren't stationary ones, and that doesn't mean there aren't ones that travel incredibly fast, because they exist. In fact, some of them are able to travel faster than Earth's escape velocity, 11.2 kilometers per second. That's the speed you need in order to escape Earth's gravitational pull. We use this a lot when we think about NASA rockets, but it applies to air too. So every so often, you'll have a gas molecule that just reaches escape velocity and is able to escape into the emptiness of space. Of course, the vast majority of molecules cannot do this, but the ones that have a higher chance are lighter molecules such as hydrogen and helium. They are more commonly the ones that escape into space. And that's why our air composition is very scarce when it comes to partial pressure of hydrogen and helium. They hardly exist in our atmosphere at all because a lot of them tend to escape Earth's gravitational pull, while the heavier ones like nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide stay.
And basically this demonstrates that where you've got gas pressure and a divide, a barrier, the vacuum of space, the pressure that's in here will immediately equalise. Now imagine that this didn't have any volume and it was the infinite vacuum of space, and this then basically burst into it. Watch what happens. We know what happens. It immediately fills the volume, and that's why it says immediately pop goes your model.
Alright man, it's just kind of annoying how you completely dismiss gravity despite that being the clear answer to your question. There's no doubt that pressure differences tends to seek an equilibrium, but you have to understand that that's not the only thing at play. Other forces exist, and you still have yet to explain to us how there can be a pressure gradient on a flat earth inside a dome anyway with no gravity. Why is the pressure at the top of Mount Everest a third of what it is at sea level? It's just not physically possible in your own model, so I suggest correcting that first before criticizing the actual accurate model of the Earth. Anyway, that's my time. Thank you to everyone for sitting through my boring rant. I'm Professor Stick, and you can find me in the description below, I think, as well as the next part to our collaboration over at my channel. Fight the Flat Earth joins me on some juicy stuff, such as how a flat earther somehow demonstrated a coin disappearing over a flat table and bringing it back into view again by zooming in. Alright, I'll see you guys over there. Thanks again for having me on.
Thank you, Professor Stick, for helping me prove that Sleeping Warrior is really stupid. But just in case you guys watching are not convinced, here is some extra proof of his stupidity.
So, before we get to a definition for atmospheric pressure, let's have a look at some comments. I'm going to pick on this one particular troll. He's a well-known troll. He's on a sock account. I won't credit him with his real name, but he's well-known. He doesn't want to speak to me personally. He does. I don't want to glorify this real troll account.
You think that's me, don't you, Leaky? Yes, you do, because you said it in comments before. Yes, I want to speak to you, but you won't speak to me until I agree gravity isn't a force. You say because I won't agree with you, I'm the most dishonest baller there is. Please, Riley, show me on the globe where gravity touched you.
He starts off with this one that says, nobody's claiming that. Basically, gravity's not a force, you need a container, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's containing that. That's just your straw man argument. Atmospheric pressure doesn't need a container. Why are you incapable of understanding that? 21 morons had liked that comment. Sleeping Warrior, atmospheric pressure. Noun, the pressure exerted by the weight of the atmosphere, which at sea level has a mean value of blah. Where does that weight come from? Well, that is the reason why I'm doing this video.
You don't need to do the video. We know where the weight comes from. Everyone knows where the weight comes from, apart from you. And whether you want to call it a force, like Newton, or the curvature of space-time, like Einstein, the answer is still the same. Yeah, you know, I couldn't go a whole Sleeping Warrior video without bringing him in. Desert File, what's causing the weight?
Gravity, you fucking retard! Gravity! Have you ever heard of fucking gravity? Gravity! Gravity!
Ben Adams, no, the pressure decreases. Why doesn't the atmosphere rush up towards the top of Everest? High pressure goes to low pressure, remember? Yeah, only on your model does it do that.
Wait, what? No. On our model, atmospheric pressure does not do that, as the atmosphere is held to the globe by gravity. It's your model, such that there is, that has no explanation for the pressure gradient.
It doesn't do that in our world though, does it? The gradient exists. We all know the gradient exists. But on your model, high pressure goes to low pressure always. Because you haven't got anything to stop it. You've got no resistance against it.
Yes, we do. Fuck's sake. Gravity!
On your model, you have the 14.7 at sea level, and that is pushing up. And the 13.7 psi above it is also pushing up. So is the 12.7, so is the 11.7, and the more violent the pressure is, the bigger the pressure, the more violent that force is. 10.7, 9.7, 8.7, 6.7, all them are getting less and less pressure, but they're still pushing up against or into that vacuum on your model.
Except that you've just debunked your own theory by admitting there is a gradient, because you don't need a physical barrier between, say, 14.7 psi and 14.6 psi. So why, as you approach the edge of our atmosphere, do you need a barrier between 0.1 psi and 0.09 psi? You can't claim the gradient is there, but also demand that we need a physical barrier to stop our atmosphere flying off into space.
You haven't got a container to stop it, and you haven't got a force to stop it either. But for the sake of this conversation, we're going to give you your force. But let's see where it progresses to.
You don't need to give us a force, it's just there. But yes, let's see where this takes you.
Weight's defined as mass times little g. Little g isn't a force, so what are you multiplying? Fuck all? Nobody said little g is a force. Well, actually, you all say it's a force. It's acceleration. Right, so if a mass accelerates, then it's a force. Something's doing that, because by virtue of F equals ma, if you've got an accelerating mass, you have a force. An acceleration is a scalar. It's not a force, it's a scalar. A scalar can't do anything. The rate of acceleration is like a velocity. It's not a force, it's a measurement. See how all you have is arguments from ignorance and incredulity. So I said, you can't help but tell everybody it's a force. You're a liar. And of course, he is a liar.
Yeah, you have to say I'm a liar, or at least my apparent stock account is a liar, for two reasons. One, to fit your narrative, and two, because you don't understand Einsteinian or Newtonian concepts. That sounds like your problem. For me, it's an endless source of entertainment.
See, argument for ignorance. Little g is acceleration, it's not a force. I never said it was a force. So what force causes a mass to accelerate downwards when dropped? What you mean apart from helium balloons that go up?
Oh, sweet baby Jesus, that was stupid. Buoyancy proves gravity. It needs it to be a thing.
We know what it is. It's relative density. It's the amount of disequilibrium. That's what governs the vector, the speed, the magnitude, the direction. All of it's controlled by disequilibrium.
Disequilibrium isn't a force. Density isn't a force. And as much as you want it to, none of that word salad explains the acceleration of 9.8 meters per second squared everything on Earth experiences at all times. Riley for dumb fuck of the year, guys. It's inevitable.
You've got no answer for it, that's the problem.
No, I do. The answer's the same on both models, but I'm not getting into it. We're trying to satisfy the definition of atmospheric pressure by satisfying the mass part for weight. If you can't satisfy mass for weight, then you don't satisfy the definition for atmospheric pressure, and your model does not do what your model claims it does. So where do we
mass is in, okay, Newton's first law. All mass is inertial mass. And inside the gravitational field, all mass is gravitational mass.
That's
all
not,
mass is accelerating downwards at 9.81 meters per second.
No, that's not Newton's first law.
Certainly is Newton's first law.
No, it isn't. Newton's first law of motion is an object in motion will remain in motion unless acted upon by a force, or an object at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by a force.
Which is quite literally the law of inertia.
That's not the way you worded it. That is not his law. You need to use the words.
The law of... No. That is the law of inertia.
Right.
My friend here that's not you talking, and you were asked not to talk because it was supposed to be gently and I, has incorrectly cited Newton's first law of motion. Newton's first law of motion is an object at rest. Can you stop interrupting, please? You were asked to go on mute. An object at rest remains at rest unless acted upon by a force. An object in motion remains in motion unless acted upon by a force. You did not read that, or you did not cite that when you said Newton's law, first law. What did you say about Newton's first law?
Newton's first law is the law of inertia. Now, if you would like to Google what is the law of inertia, I think you'll find it is Newton's first law.
Newton's first law is not Newton's first law of inertia. It's called Newton's first law of motion, and as I've correctly cited on demand, it is an object in motion will remain in motion, and the same way an object at rest will remain in rest unless acted upon by a force. You have not got your laws of motion correct. Sorry.
And on that bombshell, that's all the stupid I can take for today. But before I go, I want to say a massive thank you to all my patrons. It's thanks to the support and generosity of you guys that I'm able to do this full time, bring you great content, and continue to fight the stupid. Patrons get to vote on what each episode of my series, Stupid Humans, will be about, early access to some videos, and the chance to come on some live streams. Your support is amazing. To join, go to patreon.com/FTFE. And thank you. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss anything from FTFE. Thank you to Professor Stick for helping me out, and make sure you head over to his channel now to see the second part of our collaboration. Remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat. 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 The cray. Hey, I'm FTFE and welcome back to the channel that puts stupidity in barrels of hydrofluoric acid. Flat earthers come and go. Some fade into obscurity, some see sense and realise the earth isn't flat. Please go and subscribe to Seek Truth, Speak Truth. But some never cease to pump out the stupid. And no flat earther pumps out more constant stupid than Sleeping Warrior. He is so stupid that he once said the earth would have a solar eclipse every month.
A solar eclipse will happen every single month. And why? Because it takes 27 days, 27 point something days for the moon to orbit the earth. So at some point it's going to cross the sun. And it does it every single month. Now, I have no explanation for why it takes every 100 years for America to get one, because the law of probability dictates that it should be every few years, but we're being told it's once every 100 years. So there is a solar eclipse every month. The only problem is we don't see it because it's usually over the water. So you can bet me £1,000 because you have to come up with the reason for why it's not when the moon orbits the Earth once every month, you Burke. I bet you £1,000 solar eclipses happen every single month. The issue is we never see them because they're normally over the Earth, normally over the water.
After failing to pay up for that bet, he promptly deleted his channel and started a new one. He is so stupid he was officially voted the dumbest fuck of 2019, beating out even JM Truth. So let's take a look at the stupid person as he tries to debunk a physics teacher. Sleeping Warrior is back for Flerfs are Idiots, episode 45.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Thank you for joining me once again to look at the people whose breakfast of choice is the purple crayons. Sleeping Warrior is, how do I put this delicately, not one of the brightest people around. He clearly has issues with the most basic of things, like basic maths.
5 divided by 0 is 5. In the real world.
Basic physics.
This is an egg.
And basic toilet habits after becoming the first man to ever stream twice at the same time.
They started to get irritated. So that's
the thing is, the The thing is, though, the cop doesn't have to show you the code. He just brings you before the judge, and the judge has to show you the code.
So it blows my mind when someone of Sleeping Warrior's limited mental capacity thinks he knows more than the people that have actually studied physics. Like Conspiracy Cats, an actual physics teacher who did a video explaining gravity and the nuances of Newtonian gravity versus Einsteinian gravity. Along comes Leaky Warrior to correct him.
Newton's equation tried to describe to us what we see, whereas Einstein's work was more about why we see it.
It isn't.
They're not mutually exclusive, as many flat earthers would have you believe. Anyway, next topic.
No. Conspiracy Cats is both wrong on both points.
Conspiracy Cats is both wrong on both points? Just saying that if I'd fluffed my first line in a video, I'd have probably restarted the recording. But more importantly, what gives you the authority to say he is wrong? You don't understand physics, you haven't ever studied physics, and try to use dictionary definition of words to argue scientific points. To put it nicely, Sleeping Warrior, you're a fucking idiot.
Newtonian gravitation, as we all know if you've been in this topic for more than 2 minutes, you know that Newtonian gravitation was a force. Einsteinian gravity is an effect. They are not the same thing.
They are the same thing. They describe the same thing and mathematically break down to the exact same equation. And by that I mean you can literally derive Newton's law of gravitational attraction from Einstein's field equations. And maths is how you describe things in science. It's the language of science and how we prove our ideas. Newton's law was a mathematical description of what Newton observed. Einstein's general relativity was a description of why that attraction is there. It's also a lot more accurate than Newton's work. Newton's law is great for a local scale, but Einstein's field equations are much better for larger scale calculations. But that doesn't mean Newton was wrong. It's like saying pi isn't 3.1416 because pi is 3.14159265. It's more accurate, but they are both still the ratio of a circumference to a diameter of a circle.
Newton was not describing what we see. Newton was describing a physicality.
Come on now, Leaky. What does that even mean? Newton did describe what he saw. He realised that there must be some kind of force acting on an object falling. Otherwise, they would not start moving from rest. He called this apparent force gravity. He also realised the moon would fly off in a straight line tangent to its orbit if there wasn't some kind of force making it fall towards Earth, and that the observation of Kepler could be explained by this apparent force. And that's what Newton's law of gravitational attraction is, a mathematical description of observations that was able to make predictions and explain many natural phenomena.
Something that was pushing or pulling. Even though Newton said, "Do not ascribe gravitation to me" in his letters to Bentley, it is clear that Newtonian gravitation is a force misrepresented by ballers to believe the fiction that is known as gravity.
How can we misrepresent an observable physical phenomena? For all we need to know, there is a force. Things have mass. They accelerate towards other masses. Therefore, they have a force. F equals ma. Newton's second law of motion. You are right that Newton said not to attribute any kind of theory about gravity to him because even he realised that his maths presented some problems and seemed to suggest that gravity reached out as if by magic instantaneously across vast distances. That's why he never suggested a mechanism for what he observed. He just described it mathematically.
Einsteinian gravity is an observed phenomenon. I did a test recently where I made an egg move. When the egg moved, it's the movement of the egg, as per Einstein's gravitation, that is gravity.
Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
Einstein would not say any such thing. Einstein said that gravity was the curvature of space-time due to the uneven distribution of masses that causes an apparent attractive force between masses. In your eggs experiment...
This is an egg.
Yeah, we know, Riley, that's an egg. Just calm down. What you did was add some salt to the water. This changed one of the variables in the buoyancy force equation, rho vg, and tried to claim that a parts per million meter measured density.
Okay, that's coming in at 212 parts per million tap water. Don't know what that means. It's just a number. It could be unicorn farts. It's just a number.
Because you, Riley, are a fucking idiot. You're on the wrong channel, mate. Off you go. Subscribe to Team Skeptic.
It's the effect of the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass. It isn't the why, it's a visualization, a phenomena, an observed phenomena, step one of the scientific method.
General relativity isn't an observation, you muppet. It's an explanation of the observation, an experimentally demonstrated and verified explanation.
This teacher is lying to people, his subs, his children that he teaches in school, about gravity. Newton was not about what we see, Einstein is about what we see. Einstein is an effect. Newton was a force.
Amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong.
It's clear to anyone with half a brain that you haven't a fucking clue what you're talking about. That is literally the opposite of how it is. And as for Conspiracy Cat's lying, no. He's teaching kids what they need to know for high school physics. To have a basic understanding of the world around them, help them pass their GCSEs and prepare them for A-level and possibly further if they want to continue their study in physics. Now Riley is demanding that I show him my physics degree certificate, which I'm not going to do because I don't have it to hand, I don't have anything to prove to a mentally deficient wannabe lawyer, and I don't have a habit of posting my personal information online to people. He says he doesn't think that I have a degree because I explain gravity as an emergent force, so I'm lying to people. I asked Riley what he thinks happens that after high school, where you're taught Newtonian physics, that you get to college or uni and they tell you that actually that was all just a lie, it's not a force, it's the curvature of space-time. His response was this: you are told it's an effect, not a force. Whether the penny drops or not is another matter, and I don't think they tell you it's a lie. I think they expect you to join the dots. So you think they expect you to just figure out that you were lied to at high school? Why doesn't every person with a degree in physics say something? Because you don't know what you're talking about, and anyone with a degree in physics knows Newton and Einstein described the same thing, and that it's perfectly acceptable to talk about gravity as a force. And my challenge to you, Sleepy Dum Dum, is to find one single person with a degree in physics to publicly disagree with me, and I will admit that I'm wrong and delete this video.
He's wrong. Einstein superseded Newton. Einstein made it about an effect. The egg moving was movement. That's what Einstein calls gravity. He ascribes it to the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass. Again, this teacher is lying to you, and his subs, and his pupils in school.
But he isn't lying. He is doing his job and preparing his students to advance in physics should they wish to. And knowing him, as I do, I expect he is an extremely good teacher. And what we've tried to tell you all the time is that science doesn't supersede. It builds on what's become before. Newton wasn't wrong about what he observed and described, and this is evidenced by the fact that every time a satellite is put into orbit, it's Newton's law that is used to calculate its orbital mechanics. It's Newton's laws that are applied when building load-bearing structures like bridges and skyscrapers. Ask an engineer, they will agree. At the moment, general relativity is the best understanding we have, and Einstein's predictions keep getting proven right, like the discovery of gravitational waves. That doesn't mean in the future we won't have a better understanding that explains things better. And that wouldn't mean that Einstein was wrong.
He knows that gravity is an effect, but he still tells you that Newtonian is acceptable. In 1915, Einstein surpassed, replaced, superseded, debunked, replaced, whatever a word you want.
Well, none of those words are right, so...
It became mutually exclusive in 1915, when he submitted his paper on the theory of general relativity. You don't have to like that, but you will accept it.
No, we won't accept it. And by we, I mean anyone who wasn't a victim of the great brain robbery of '09.
And every time this drongo teacher calls out gravity as a force in any way, I'm going to be there to correct people that this guy's lying.
Why you no speak good, Riley? Make a basic structure of sentence you cannot.
We don't see gravity. We see things move. Helium balloons must be attracted by a force to the sky, according to this mumbo idiot fool.
You've had this explained to you at least 666 times, Riley. I know it won't help, but I think you need to go to the remedial classroom. Again. Right, you bunch of morons, sit down and shut up. What is it, Mr. Riley? You need the toilet? Go on then, quickly, we'll wait till you get back. Mr. Riley, what are you in a bottle? What do you mean that's how you do it at home? I just threw up in my mouth a little. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. Wait, are you passing that bottle to Mr. Murphy? No, please don't, Mr. Murphy. No, it's still warm. Why, Mr. Murphy? Why?
Well, I've been drinking urine now for 6 years.
I hate my job. Just take notes, or don't. I really don't care at this point. Helium balloons are attracted to the sky, according to flat earthers. But what they ignore is the buoyancy equation has G in it. This G stands for the acceleration due to gravity. The denser air with more mass gets pulled down with more force than the lighter helium in the balloon. This creates an upward force directly opposite to the local gravitational vector. Buoyancy requires gravity. It's the same with a car with a helium balloon in it. Normally, when a car accelerates forward, you get pushed back into your seat. But a helium balloon would move forward as you accelerate forward, the heavier air is pushed to the back of the car. I really don't care if any of you paid attention or took notes. I think I'm being punished for being a horrible person in a past life. Class dismissed. Yes, I know we only just started, but I hate all of you and need my breakfast. Where did I put the whiskey?
We know there's no force of attraction in clouds. We know there's no force of attraction in stars. But helium balloons do go up. Relative density explains that.
Buoyancy explains clouds. That's why when they get too heavy it rains. But to say there is no attraction in stars is just willful ignorance. It's what causes our orbit. Earth is in constant freefall towards our star. But we have a fast enough tangential velocity that we miss it and keep going around. And relative density? No, Riley. Density isn't a force. It cannot cause an acceleration.
We can calculate it. We can predict it. It has both a vector, it has a direction and a magnitude. It's a vector.
Bollocks, you can calculate it. That's an outright lie. For there to be a vector, there has to be a reason for something to go in a particular direction. And the biggest problem for your claim of density being a force is that density gives no reason to go in a particular way. Yes, a lead ball is more dense than water, but how does the lead ball know which way is down? It doesn't. No matter how much you bleat like the sheep that you are, following around Nathan Oakley and Quantum Eraser, you cannot escape the need for a downward acceleration for things to, actually accelerate towards the ground. Relative density is a bunch of crap.
But they ignore this because it doesn't go with their narrative, their religion, their belief. This guy's lying to people about gravity.
No, Katz isn't lying. Calling people a liar because you don't understand is about as arrogant as you can get. And we don't have beliefs. We have evidence and actual science. Not your batshit crazy version of science.
We know what gravity is because current physics defines it. Einstein defines it. It is defined. We also know what causes it. Einstein defined it with its cause. It all goes back to your definition of current physics. Gravity is the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass.
And you haven't the first clue what that means, do you? The curvature is what causes the apparent attractive force between masses. You are under the idiotic assumption that it stops at warping space-time. Current physics says that warping space-time leads to the Newtonian side that engineers use every day.
I missed off the first two words of the definition, and I'm going to emphasize them now. It's the effect of the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass. So we do know what gravity is, and we do know what causes it. Einstein described it as a visualization, an effect, a perceived phenomena. Yeah,
You can shout the effect as loud as you like. It still doesn't change the fact that you are comically ignorant to any of the physics that you talk about. Your knowledge of physics comes from skimming quotes from articles and textbooks without ever understanding any of the context. Your brain, Riley, is simply too dull to visualize any of the complex concepts required to understand what you quote. I tell you to read a fucking book, but you wouldn't understand, so there's no point.
Neil deGrasse Tyson dropped his microphone. The movement of the microphone in the direction that we attribute known as down is what Einstein says gravity is. It's the movement.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Riley, you're dumb as fuck.
It's not any force that's pulling it towards the ground or a force pushing it towards the ground as per Newton. Einstein's gravity is mutually exclusive. This guy's lying. However, you try getting any baller to explain how the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass is what caused Neil deGrasse Tyson's microphone to drop.
Again, just for you, Riley, in general relativity, the apparent attractive force between masses is an emergent property of the warping of space-time due to the uneven distribution of mass. This is the current understanding we have of gravity. Well, some people understand. Obviously not you.
It just becomes comical. They know it becomes comical and they have to swerve it at all costs. Conspiracy Cats is lying to people on the internet, but he's lying to your children in school too. He did a degree. He knows Einstein is an effect, but he still teaches Newton. He lets all the children come out of school believing gravity was a force because it's in the curriculum.
And like I said, it's in the curriculum because they need to have that understanding if they want to progress in physics.
Yeah, he knows that it's an effect. You've got to ask yourself, why would a teacher lie to children and justify it on the basis that it's in the curriculum? But deep down inside, he knows that gravity's not a force. The guy's lying. There's no two ways about it. And he's teaching it to your kids. If you think that's acceptable, you're a fucking spastic. It isn't okay to lie to children. I was lied to when I was in school. If somebody told me in school that, well, it's in the curriculum and that's why we teach it to you, but it's not actually a force, it's an effect, everything would have been different in my life.
Lovely language there, Riley, but things would have been different, really. I can see it now. Nah, this is more Riley's level.
Anthony, if a triangle has the sides 1 and 1, do you know what the angles of the triangle are?
Which kind of triangle are you on about? Are you on about like a right angle triangle?
The triangle has sides 1, 1, and 1. Do you know what the angles are?
The angles would be... Well, it would be an equilateral triangle, wouldn't it?
Right, so what are the angles? Now I'm going to ask this again. If you have a triangle with sides of 1, 1, and 1, what are the angles?
I'm gonna pull up a triangle calculator.
Let's do this again. Anthony, a triangle has sides 1, 1, and 1. What are the angles? Is somebody recording this? Because this is just priceless.
Well, the one I'm using it's not giving me any when I do it. So either this calculator is wrong or you're wrong.
We have a triangle with sides of 1, 1, and what are the angles?
Yeah, so that's an equilateral triangle, right?
Right, so what are the angles?
Does that work on a right angle triangle?
The sides are 1, 1, and 1. What are the angles?
When is that ever used in astronomical calculations for measuring trig? Paul Michel Foucault, the guy we all know for the pendulum effect. Apparently it shows the rotation of the Earth. What do we know about Foucault? Not that much really. French,
pendulums. That's about it. That's all we know about him. This is the guy. He died in 1984, aged 57. Does anybody know what he died of? I didn't know what he died of. Presumably old age. There's not that much in it, but for the fact that he was gay, openly gay. He died of HIV, and that's about as much as you can tell. Everything else in here is generally not that, not that interesting. There's not that much in it. One thing I want to show you is that if you do a Control and F in here and type in pendulum, no mention of the pendulum. Foucault's pendulum is supposed to show the rotation of the Earth. Wouldn't you think that if that was true, it would at least get a mention in his...
You've got no answer for it, that's the problem.
No, I do. The answer's the same on both models, but I'm not getting into it. We're trying to satisfy the definition of atmospheric pressure by satisfying the mass part for weight. If you can't satisfy mass for weight, then you don't satisfy the definition for atmospheric pressure, and your model does not do what your model claims it does. So where do we...
Okay, Newton's first law. All mass is inertial mass. And inside the gravitational field, all mass is gravitational mass.
That's
all
not
mass is accelerating downwards at 9.81 metres per second.
No, that's not Newton's first law.
Certainly is Newton's first law.
No, it isn't. Newton's first law of motion is an object in motion will remain in motion unless acted upon by a force, or an object at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by a force.
Which is quite literally the law of inertia.
That's not the way you worded it. That is not his law. You need to use the words.
The law of... No. That is the law of inertia.
Right. My friend here that's not you talking, and you were asked not to talk because it was supposed to be gently and I, has incorrectly cited Newton's first law of motion. Newton's first law of motion is an object at rest... Can you stop interrupting, please? You were asked to go on mute. An object at rest remains at rest unless acted upon by a force. An object in motion remains in motion unless acted upon by a force. You did not read that, or you did not cite that when you said Newton's law, first law. What did you say about Newton's first law?
Newton's first law is the law of inertia. Now, if you would like to Google what is the law of inertia, I think you'll find it is Newton's first law.
Newton's first law is not Newton's first law of inertia. It's called Newton's first law of motion, and as I've correctly cited on demand, it is an object in motion will remain in motion, and the same way an object at rest will remain in rest unless acted upon by a force. You have not got your laws of motion correct. Sorry.
And that's all the stupid that I can take for today, but just before I go, I want to give a massive thanks to all my channel members and patrons. I could not continue to do what I do without your support. There is a special section in my Discord for you guys where I will do streams that you can join from. To help support this channel, you can become a member by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button, or become a patron at patreon.com/FTFE. And thank you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss anything from FTFE. And remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat. Fight the flat. Fight